In the middle of the fierce confrontation with Durandal, a faint glint flashed in Vita's eyes, an expression that seemed to take in everything. Her lips curved into a knowing, almost playful smile. Mind communication channel, masked fool internal encrypted line, connected. Sparkle. Ding dong. Your requested little bit of fireworks have arrived at the designated coordinates, dear big sister. Has navigation been activated? The fun can't wait. While elegantly directing the star navigator to brace against Durandal's charge, Vita replied calmly in her mind. Heh, such an impatient little sister. The coordinates are already calculated. Thanks to some unknown existence's pioneering work, the spatiotemporal node to that parallel world is as obvious as a torn pocket. Great, then let's start the party. Let all this dull hatred and destruction turn into fireworks leading to a new paradise. Agreed, leading the inevitable end of fate onto an unforeseen detour. Isn't that the very essence of wisdom and joy? Space-time coordinates sent. The rest is up to you, naughty one. Sparkle. Received, watch me. The mental link cut off. Vita kept her focus on the battle, even allowing Durandal a faint, meaningful smile. Distracting oneself in battle is ill-advised, young Miss Valkyrie, but perhaps soon we will have an even grander stage. Durandal's heroic brows knitted tightly. A strong instinct blared that this elegant opponent was plotting something troublesome, possibly dangerous. She no longer hesitated, gripping the black and white abyssal flower. Light gathered fiercely along the spear, the shaft humming with barely contained power. The holy spear was ready to unleash its true might. Vita's composed posture shifted a fraction. Seriousness entered her eyes. The long-awaited fun was about to begin, and she would not be eliminated at the last moment through carelessness. That would ruin her aesthetic and sour her mood. The star navigator's floating sword-like wings fanned out fully. Electromagnetic waves folded into layers of emerald concentric rings, contracting and expanding like a beating heart. Vast energy pooled at its chest as several blazing green cannons of destructive light erupted, answering Durandal's spear release. Two opposing beams converged along a narrow path and collided midair, forming a circular shockwave of energy that tore through the void realm. Do you only know how to dodge? Is that your so-called wisdom? Durandal snapped, driving the holy spear through the sky. Vita leapt back with the same languid grace. The star navigator's mechanical arm intercepted the spear tip, sparks raining in a dazzling display. Vita's inscrutable smile remained as her voice came through the mecha's hum. Patience is a virtue. True wisdom lies in waiting for the optimal moment, not in blindly unleashing power. A grander drama is about to begin. Why rush to decide the outcome now? She was not in a hurry. She waited, waiting for Sparkle to locate the spatiotemporal node, waiting for the fireworks. Far harsher fighting raged on Jingliu's side. Her sword light cut like cold moonshine, her sword chi chilled and shattered space. Jingliu's offense matched her nature, cold, pure, and ruthlessly efficient. Each swing targeted the weakest point of Sea God Tangsan's divine sense clone. Tangsan's construct was already in tatters. The Sea God Trident's radiance dimmed as the clone's condensed divine force was repeatedly severed by Jingliu's deceptively simple slashes that carried absolute sword intent. Against Jingliu's ability to sever karma and freeze time, Tangsan's proud divine arts looked lacking. God King, is that all? Jingliu's cold voice rang, carrying an edge of almost imperceptible disappointment. Your struggle is meaningless. She was poised to deliver a decisive stroke to annihilate that last remnant of divine sense. Jingliu! A roar, centuries of accumulated hatred and humiliation, exploded across the arena. A figure wreathed in violent blood chi tore onto the field at supersonic speed. A war blade that could split mountains slashed toward Jingliu's back. It was Hu Lei, finally back on the battlefield, eyes fixed on the one who had defeated him and imprisoned him in the ghost prison for centuries. Jingliu seemed to have eyes in the back of her head. Without turning, she flicked her sword backward. Clang! The steel rang out as her sword precisely met the weakest point of the warblade's arc, deflecting Hu Lei's enraged strike. The shockwave plowed 3 feet deeper into the ground. Jingliu turned, her blood-red eyes sweeping over Hu Lei's contorted face. So it's you. Her tone was flat, as if recognizing an insignificant insect. Bullingren's war chief, Centuries of imprisonment haven't taught you to measure the situation. Those understated words drove like needles into Hulei's heart, igniting every humiliation. Shut up. I want you dead. He lost himself, burning his origin power to a fever. Blood chi surged. He lunged with suicidal abandon. Jingliu's brow tightened, clearly annoyed by the interruption. Her sword never faltered. Moon-like swordlight brightened and met Hulei's desperate charge precisely. Your rage is only amusing. At that moment, brilliant silver light descended, and a titanic dragon might swept over the battlefield. The Silver Dragon King, Guyuena, in her true form, appeared, silver hair, violet eyes, peerless and serene. Guyue, who had been observing from the side, transformed into a stream of light and merged into the main body. Guyuena's aura swelled in harmony and power. Her cold violet dragon eyes locked on Tang San's divine sense clone, which had briefly steadied thanks to Hulei's arrival. Without a word, Guyuena raised her hand and unleashed a condensed torrent of elements: earth, fire, water, wind, light, darkness, space, fused perfectly into a destructive seven-colored pillar of light that slammed toward Tang San. Silver Dragon King, it's you. How could you appear here? Tang San's divine sense clone registered utter shock. He had prepared for much, but had never imagined the co-lord of the spirit beasts, the Silver Dragon King, who had been hiding on Douluo Continent, would show up now and strike him directly. Relief granted by Hulei's arrival evaporated as Guyuena effectively relieved Jingliu and relentlessly hunted him instead. Hulei's roar split the sky. The pair of moon-red warblades in his hands thrummed. Dark bloodlight pumped along their edges like living things. Electric arcs no longer merely danced. They exploded into writhing lightning snakes coiling about him. His muscles bulged, veins standing out. Something beastly had awakened. The Bullingren step-away person, this moon frenzy state surged. Rationality gave way to pure bloodlust and savage force. Jingliu, the centuries of humiliation in the ghost prison will be washed away in your blood today. Hulei's voice was a swollen bellow. The Bullingren's abnormal vitality and regeneration kicked in. The minor cuts from the earlier sword chi closed almost instantly. He drove his boots into the ground, and the earth ruptured. He became a blood-lightning afterimage, his war blades screaming through the air. From dizzying, unpredictable angles, he hacked at Jingliu like a storm. But Jingliu appeared increasingly ethereal amid the onslaught, like a snowflake never falling amid a blizzard. Her footwork was profound. Each subtle motion left a solid afterimage that misled Hulei's strikes. Her true body flashed to the blind spot of an attack, and her long sword, like a meteoric flash, struck with a technique she called flowing shadow, reflected brilliance. Chila, the cold edge grazed Hulei's ribs, drawing blood and instantly laying down specks of ice deep in the wound. Extreme cold surged in, trying to freeze flesh and slow his circulation. But the bloodlight on Hulei flared. The Bullingren's mighty physique and near immortality pushed back. Flesh and blood writhed as if alive, expelling much of the invading cold chi. The wound knit shut in a breath, leaving only a pale crust of frost on skin. It's useless, Jingliu. You couldn't kill me last time, and you can't do it now. Your ice can't seal my boiling battle blood. Hulei laughed manically and spun. His blades didn't just swing. They orchestrated an ancient war dance, stirring the air into a storm. A blood-blade maelstrom surged up, dozens of meters thick. Countless crimson blade lights formed a tangible storm wall, their cutting power terrifying. Their defiling aura eroded the mind and sapped energy, sealing Jingliu's evasive spaces and forcing a head-on clash. The ghost prison didn't temper your recklessness, only made it pathetic. Jingliu's voice stayed cold and otherworldly. Her swordplay shifted, no longer relying solely on the swift thrusts of flowing shadow-reflected brilliance. Her momentum flowed like a moonlit spring winding everywhere. Each strike targeted the weakest nodes in Hulei's bloodblade storm. Her cold sword chi, like a living thing, drilled into gaps and inflicted deeper, more fatal wounds. Frost accumulated on Hulei's body. Pressed, injured, and enraged, Hulei's frenzy intensified. He dove his warblades into the earth. Boom! A muffled drumbeat sounded as a vast, complex, blood-colored magic array materialized around his blades, filling the air with the scent of blood. Blood lightning earth surge. Twisted tentacles of blood chi and savage lightning erupted from the array, reaching for Jingliu. Hulei's own blood chi flared like dynamite, his skin blushed crimson. his speed and force spiked. He ceased closing the distance and began slashing from afar. Dense, crescent blood moon cuts sliced the air like locusts, forming a barrage together with the lightning tentacles. Let's see how long you can dodge. Hulei's wild laughter boomed. At that desperate moment, the air around Jinglu froze. The pervasive cold collapsed inward and focused. In her eyes, the bloodlight looked even more demonic. Her waxing and waning state activated, her silver-white hair whipped without wind, its tips frosted. Power, speed, and ice control leapt to a new peak. She stopped dodging and met the attack head-on. Cold river, reflecting moon. Her sword vanished into a burst of moonlight rays. These rays were not mere sword chi. They moved like living spirits, tracing innumerable, elegant, deadly arcs that shredded every blood moon slash and severed every blood lightning tentacle. Some moonrays even passed through the defense to strike Hulei as if by teleportation. A high-speed slashing feast unfolded, perfect speed and lethality in the waxing and waning state. Hulei howled under the unrelenting assault. His immortal body still healed rapidly, but the rate slowed. Each moonlight hit drove deeper cold into him, like a chronic disease eroding vitality and soul, beginning to subtly suppress his proud, regenerative edge. He roared and countered, smashing his blades down with power enough to split mountains. Jinglu advanced instead of retreating. In waxing and waning, her movement exceeded visual capture. Frost Soul, first turn! She sidestepped by a hair, dodging the main force of the blow, and her sword tip, already poised, tapped out with momentum. A condensed, knife-precise shard of extreme cold cut into a node of Hulei's power circulation, forcibly interrupting his assault and coating him in a deep freeze that stiffened his movements. End of chapter. Run QQ has written a new book, Douluo, Regent of Time, Ruler of the World. Synopsis. Reborn on the Douluo Continent in the era of the peerless Tang sect, Yinshin thought he had it made. He had the system. Who knew that the absurd system would become a useless box on arrival and die on the spot? Just when he thought his life script was ruined, he discovered that sacrificing the system granted him boundless spirit power. With no other choice, Yinshin tearfully looted the package, inherited the system's legacy, and awakened a time element spirit, Regent of Time, Istaru. From that moment, the rules of the Douluo Continent began to collapse. Where other spirit abilities relied on explosive power and raw numbers, his were bafflingly mechanical. First effect cause, anchors the future, locks the result, and rewrites the past. Time deletion, erases the process and directly achieves the result. Time reset, 1 second he's mortally wounded, the next he's perfectly whole. Your spirit ability can destroy heaven and earth? Sorry, my true body exists in the past and the future. If you want to hit me, come along the timeline. There were no berserk spirit power values, no flashy ring explosion effects, but when Yinshin smiled and lifted a hand, even the God King trembled. This person's spirit abilities, why are they all like underworld mechanics? He muttered. Yinshin, called the Story King and the True Monarch, a man who seemed to live off others yet always held the upper hand, looked up at the starry sky and chuckled softly. Without the system, I am still invincible in this world. If you're interested, go give it a read. The old book will also be finished as planned, so there's no need to worry about it being discontinued. End of this chapter. Hulei's movements froze as if time itself had stuttered. Jinglu did not immediately press the advantage. She raised the longsword in her hand slowly, its tip pointing at the sky. Sword intent and cold chi roared together toward the blade like 100 rivers pouring into the sea. Let this moonlight illuminate all rivers, she said, her voice clear and indifferent. The sky darkened, as if the sword had swallowed the light. Then a moonlight sword chi, brilliantly cold and indescribable, descended. As it fell, a vast, translucent ice domain unfurled, enclosing Hulei and the space around him. Inside the domain, time stalled, light warped, and sound vanished. Only an endless penetrating chill remained, freezing everything it touched. Hulei felt a deathly threat unlike any before, even greater than the moment he had first been frozen centuries ago. He flung his life origin into motion, overdriving his Boulingrin bloodline foundation in a desperate bid to break free. The Blood Moon Battle Blade howled as he tried to shatter the domain's absolute freeze. Jinglu, since the century I was defeated by you, I have thought every moment how to counter your power, he roared, heartbeat pounding like a drum, blood surging, body temperature spiking until it threatened to melt steel. He tried to fight ice with self-consuming heat, willing his life itself to be the fuel. I will not die. A twisted, frantic roar escaped him, and for the first time the ice around him quivered. He moved. Jingliu's gaze, however, was as calm as still water, even edged with a kind of indifferent pity. Futile. She parted her red lips and spoke the word. Hulei's solution had been clever, desperate but clever, but it couldn't bridge the fundamental gap between them. Jingliu, even not at her peak, was her true self. Hulei was a memory body sustained by the Holy Grail. His power was inferior not just to his original self, but to Jingliu now. And Jingliu's true core was not merely ice, but sword art that could shatter stars. Under the crushing pressure of her terrifying sword intent, Hulei's burning heat was like a candle in a gale. The blood-red radiance on his body dimmed and splintered. His regrowing flesh couldn't keep pace with the sword chi's incessant annihilation. His struggle, his unwillingness, centuries of obsession, everything froze and was undone by cold moonlight. The domain collapsed. Hulei remained where he had been struggling, only now he was an immaculate crystal sculpture of ice, his madness and final scream frozen into an eternal expression. Jingliu descended slowly. Her Shuo-Wang state dissipated, the red glow left her eyes. Her complexion returned to normal, breathing steady and even, as if she had performed some small task. She didn't bother with the ice statue, turning away with indifferent focus on another contest. She had no need to gloat. Erasing a defeated opponent's memory body was trivial to her. On the other side, the clash between sea god Tang San and the silver dragon king Gu Yuena had reached white heat. Tang San's divine sense clone recovered from the shock of the silver dragon king's sudden appearance with solemn resolve. The sea god trident responded to its master's battle intent, erupting in towering golden blue light. Vast sea-like divine force surged outward, pressuring all directions. Unfixed storm. Tang San was first to strike with crowd control. The trident traced an arc in the air. Massive golden halos, each ringed with sea god runes, appeared and flew in from all directions, above, below, left and right, attempting to seal off Guyuena's possible movements. The halos carried powerful binding force, layering upon layer as they closed. A hint of disdain flickered across Guyuena's face. She didn't move. A faint silver light danced about her as a manifestation of absolute command over space. The golden halos approaching within 10 meters seemed to be swallowed by overlapping spatial mazes, their speed stuttering, trajectories twisting, as though stuck in viscous amber. She raised a slender hand and casually tapped the void. The surrounding space rippled. The halos brushed past her by mere millimeters, barely missing her, and instead smashing into the ruins behind, erupting into showers of gold that failed to even crease her clothing. Sea God? Guyuena's voice was ethereal, lofty, the voice of a co-ruler among spirit beasts. With a wisp of divine sense, you dare to show off? What gives you such boldness? She barely finished before a slender, jade-like finger tapped the void realm again. Elemental tide, annihilation. This was no simple elemental mix. Earth, fire, water, light, darkness, and space, the 7 primal laws, were harmonized and amplified into a shifting 7-colored torrent over 10 meters wide. It tore through space not by ripping, but by erasing it, revealing chaotic void beneath. Everything in its path, matter and energy alike, was decomposed, assimilated, reduced to base particles. It was an annihilating tide that even divine force could not endure. Tang San's face altered. The threat was far beyond what his fragile wisp of divine sense could withstand. He poured everything he had into the sea god trident. Golden 13 halberds, millennia of emptiness. Thousands of solid golden halberd shadows sprang into being, forming a dense, disciplined defensive array, an unyielding golden wall. Divine force flowed between the halberd phantoms, trying to blunt and resolve the elemental onslaught with the vast resilience of the sea god. When the 7-colored torrent met the halberd array, the collision was cataclysmic, as if 2 stars had struck. A blinding, sun-bright explosion erupted. Space at the core of the blast cracked like a shattered mirror, a temporary black hole swallowing everything near it. The shockwave flattened distant ruins and even reshaped the land. After several breaths, Tang San's golden array began to collapse. The strain left his divine sense body shaking and thinning. translucent, drained, badly damaged. Guyuena pressed the advantage without pity. She ignored revealing her true form and instead condensed a gargantuan translucent silver dragon claw phantom, its tip flashing with 7-colored law lights. The phantom carried a primordial pressure that seemed to make the laws of the world bow, an obliterating force that ignored distance and aimed for Tang San's head. Tang San felt a kill blow that unsettled his divine sense. He roared and flung his remaining power into one last desperate strike. The trident cried out and became an immense golden blue pillar, as if to prop up heaven and earth against the dragon claw. The clash that followed was more terrible than the last. The pillar and claw met in a collision that overcame sound, producing only a blooming, polluting light that expanded into a ball of energy. For a moment they stood opposed, then the dragon claw dissipated. Tang San's final strike had spent itself. The pillar disintegrated. His divine sense body hung on by a thread, nearly transparent and lifeless. "Silver Dragon King, why are you here?" Tang San's voice was raw with shock, anger, and a small, exposed weakness. He couldn't fathom why Guyuena would appear now, opposing him. She should have been recovering in shadow. Guyuena offered no answer, her purple dragon eyes flooded with cold, divine light. Her hands folded gently before her chest, and in their space a tightly compressed, 7-colored sphere of light condensed, an orb in which countless miniature galaxies seemed to be born and die, oozing annihilating power. The nearby space distorted under its weight. "It's over, sea god," she said softly. The sphere vanished from her hands, and ignoring distance, leapt directly into Tang San's almost insubstantial divine sense body. He had no time to react. Frozen with shock, he let out one last, desperate cry. The sphere exploded inside him. 7 colors of searing light engulfed the wisp of sea god divine sense. Elements within raged and tore one another apart. When the light cleared, Tang San's divine sense was gone, completely erased as if it had never existed. Not even a particle remained. The Silver Dragon King's condensed elemental origin had annihilated him utterly. Guyuena lowered her hands, face cold and indifferent, as if she had brushed away a speck of dust. She turned her head toward Jingliu and gave a slight nod. Jingliu returned the nod easily, eyes clear and steady. 2 women, equal in power and resolve, had swiftly settled their opponents. Only Hulei's frozen figure remained among the ruins, and the afterglow of lingering energies still twisted in the air. Above Mingdu, the destruction had paused, but the silence that followed was heavy with grief. Tang Wutong stood stunned, color drained from her face like porcelain gone dull. She stared at the place where sea god Tang San's wisp had dissipated. Only faint, trembling golden dust lingered, like a dying candle singing one last elegy. "Father?" she whispered, voice thin and disbelieving. "No, it can't be. Father is a god king. How could he?" She reached for the familiar warmth of the sea god force and found only cold void. The protector she had known, the presence that had given her courage and confidence, had been shattered and erased to protect her. Panic and a bone-deep chill closed around her chest. She could hardly draw breath. Tang Wutong, daughter of a god king, loved and secure all her life, felt the foundation of her world collapse in an instant. Bewilderment and pain clouded her eyes. Her legs wavered. Her will collapsed to its nadir. At that moment, a golden figure stepped silently behind her. Wang Chuer stood there, the golden dragon spear in her hands. Her face was eerily similar to Tang Wutong's, but harder, wilder, remoter. Her eyes churned with complicated emotion. She looked at Tang Wutong's broken, defenseless form. For a flicker, struggle crossed her features, then it hardened into something colder. A hunger for a complete soul, a single-minded desire for independence. Opportunity had come. The golden dragon spear hummed. With no hesitation, it became a razor-thin lance of golden light and plunged into Tang Wutong's undefended back with surgical precision. The sound of blade through flesh rang out, sharp and cruel. "Ah!" Tang Wutong's body went rigid. Pain refocused her scattered gaze. She turned, weakly and incredulously, to see the golden tip protruding from her chest, stained with crimson. She tried to rise, but strength had left her. Her life force drained fast. Her heart felt like it had been smashed. The sorrow for her father's loss had not yet cooled. Now it was compounded by shock and the blow of betrayal. The world contracted to a pinpoint of agony and disbelief as her vision dimmed. Wang Chuer flicked her wrist and drew the golden dragon spear back. Tang Wutong's body sagged forward. Bright red blood spread beneath her like a tragically beautiful blossom. The light in her eyes winked out, leaving only a look of incomprehension, sorrow, and regret. As Tang Wutong's life force faded, something strange happened. A brilliant halo, threaded with odd soul fluctuations, rose from her brow. It was a fragment of her soul, part of her, and at the same time of the same origin as Wang Chuer. Wang Chuer inhaled deeply and held the spear level before her. Its tip seemed to exert an invisible pull. The wisp of soul, like a fledgling finding its nest, drifted toward her and finally merged into the place between her brows. Tang Wutong's body, now soulless, dissolved into points of light and folded into Wang Chuer's form. Boom! An indescribable sense of completion swept through her. A soul that had been a circle missing its crucial piece was suddenly whole. No more stagnation, no more emptiness, only a perfect, flawless center. Power rippled from her. Golden light shot into the sky, purer and denser than before. The golden dragon spear gave out a high, triumphant roar as if exulting in her completion. When the light receded, Wang Chuer stood very still, feeling endless new strength flowing through her and the solid wholeness of her soul. Her outward looks had barely changed, but her bearing had been transformed utterly. Tang Wutong's memories were now hers, yet they felt like watching someone else's film, not lived experience. Still, those memories reshaped her. She had acquired a more noble, almost sacred temperament. She was no longer simply the human vessel of the three-eyed golden lion, nor merely the counterpart to Tang Wutong. From this moment, she was a complete, independent person. She was Wang Chuer. Congratulations, Chuer. The gentle, smiling voice behind her broke the moment. Wang Chuer already knew it was Lu Jingming without turning. She turned slowly. Golden light flickered in her eyes. She didn't smile at his words. Instead, she tilted her head, a faint, meaningful curve appearing at one corner of her mouth, and asked softly, "No one can sway my destiny. Then, what about you, Lu Jingming?" The question struck at a core. Lu Jingming's confident smile froze. He had not expected her first question, now that she was whole, to be pointed so directly at him. From behind him came a muffled, indulgent chuckle. Lei Muan, hand to her lips, eyes curved into playful crescents at the sight of Lu Jingming, flustered. Even Istaru, the normally detached time administrator who resembled a motionless clock tower, lifted her half-closed lids and allowed a faint, rare smile. The sight of both of them amused made Lu Jingming look more discomfited still. He gave a rueful shrug. All right, except for me." His tone was frank. "What I said presumes one thing, except for me." He did not deny it. Although Wang Chuer's soul had become complete and her potential was immense, her destiny still lay, to some extent, in his hands. He had planned and arranged her future. The sea god position, already formed and suspended within the Holy Grail, was intended by Lu Jingming to be inherited by Wang Chuer. Soul and bloodline had effectively made her Tang Wutong's successor. In that sense, calling her Tang Wutong wasn't entirely wrong, but her personality and name were wholly different. Lu Jingming's choice was practical. With the bloodline and luck of a god king's daughter combined with the auspicious beast's lineage, she had terrifying potential, enough to bear a god position. It was also, he admitted to himself, a little amusement. He was curious to see the sea god position fall to Wang Chuer and what unpredictable consequences would follow. With Karna and Hulei gone, the Holy Grail War was nearing its end. The war's aims to push the Douluo world forward and to condense a god position had been achieved. Douluo's star had accumulated the energy it needed, and the god position had been secured. The remaining servants, Artoria, Skirk, Jingyuan, and the others, Lu Jingming had no intention of annihilating. These powerful outsiders could remain as variables in a world on the brink of change. Their collisions might spark far more spectacular, unforeseen transformations. That prospect pleased him. "Huh? This is..." Wang Chuer's voice cut off with a small, surprised sound as she raised her right hand. On the smooth back of it, a blood-colored command seal, the same as the one on her left, the mark of a contract, was condensing into being. Lu Jingming's eyes narrowed. His gaze flicked to where Vita was locked in fierce combat with Durandal, and he understood. Under normal rules, Tang Wutong's death would trigger a countdown for her servant Vita. The Holy Grail would begin to siphon negative energy from a masterless servant until it dissipated. But Lu Jingming didn't see the Grail drawing on Vida. Vida's connection had not been severed. Her contract still had a maintainer. The reason was clear. Though Tang Wutong's body was gone, on the levels of soul and bloodline, she and Wang Chuer had merged. To the Holy Grail's judgment, based on soul and contract links, Wang Chuer and Tang Wutong were the same person. Vida's contract had therefore transferred. Unwittingly, Wang Chuer had exploited a loophole in the Grail's rules. She now held the contracts of two servants at once. Of course, a master's binding power over a servant varied. Some, like Ma Xiaotao, barely bound their servant at all. Sparkle paid little heed to her. And Vida, capricious and pleasure-seeking, would she actually obey Wang Chuer? That was an open question. On the field, Vida's attack faltered. Regret flickered across her all-seeing heavenly insight eyes. "Little Wutong died," she murmured. "How regrettable. Little V is a little sad." She'd expected Tang Wutong's path to be dangerous. Despite everything she had felt, for a long time Tang Wutong had called her older sister, and something like affection had grown, if only a little. But the sadness was brief. Vida immediately sensed the severed contract reconnecting on its own. Her composed face showed rare surprise. This was beyond her expectations. She'd prepared contingencies to avoid the Grail's forced reclamation, confident she could survive her master's death by her own means. But before she could enact anything, the contract simply leapt back to life. She sent her gaze like a blade toward Wang Chuer. Her heavenly insight flickered. The cause and effect were plain. "Heh, so that's how it is." Vida's lips curved into her usual elegant smile. The completion of the soul. How interesting. She made the choice that best suited her interests. With an exaggerated, still graceful gasp, she raised her hands in mock surrender and called back the Du Xingjie, star measurer pilot behind her. "Ceasefire, ceasefire. Little V surrenders. Lady Durandal, have mercy, won't you?" The spear tip, humming with the power of decomposition and creation, stopped inches from Vida's brow. Durandal's brow was deeply furrowed. She wanted to end this dangerous, cunning woman with a single strike, but her strict sense of honor would not allow her to kill an opponent who had plainly surrendered. If she were to kill, it would be in a fair duel, not when the other had given up fighting. Durandal halted, wary, as Vida expected. Vida's smile widened. She had always known Durandal would not take advantage, but she had also planned for the possibility. If Durandal had ignored decorum and tried to kill her outright, Vida had her own survival tricks ready. "Stop, Durandal." Lu Jingming and Wang Chuer appeared at Durandal's back just then. With Vida's contract now tied to Wang Chuer, she was no longer someone they needed to eliminate. Durandal sheathed her black abysmal white flower weapon, but she did not relax her vigilance. Vida's unpredictability kept her wary. "What happened?" she asked. Vida folded her hands in front of her, still smiling. "It's a long story, but this young Miss Vida can no longer be considered an enemy." Lu Jingming smiled and addressed Vida gently. "Am I right, Miss Vida?" His easy expression made Vida slightly suspicious. There was always some deeper meaning to Lu Jingming's smiles. Her eyes flicked to the imposing dark green Du Xingjie beside her. The closer she examined it, the more tempted she was. She murmured to herself that a machine like that was quite a treat. Lu Jingming inwardly praised the thought. A man is a boy until he dies, and what boy could resist a top-tier mech? Unless it was a mech girl. Well, he already had Firefly for that. Now this perfect mech seemed to have been delivered into play. Vida, pragmatic as ever, followed Lu Jingming's lead. "A master-servant contract can't be faked. We are truly companions now, aren't we?" She smiled like a blossom, light and airy. Facing Durandal, Istaru, and Leimuan all at once would be pressure enough. Resisting them outright would be foolish. Vida knew how to read a situation. She had no intention of betraying Sparkle. Switching sides and chasing amusement were different things to her. Even with a new master, her attitude would probably be the same as with Tang Wutong. Outward obedience, inward opportunism. The real fun was always the dance itself. She turned her all-seeing gaze to Wang Chuer, eyes bright with playful scrutiny, and deliberately drew out her words. "So then, my dear master, should I keep calling you Little Wutong, or—" "My name is Wang Chuer." Wang Chuer's face hardened, and she answered clearly, without hesitation. She would not admit to being Tong Wutong, even if their destinies were now closely entwined. I see. I understand. Vita folded her hands across her chest with a graceful motion that only served to emphasize her figure. A faint, knowing smile stayed on her lips, as if she understood everything but couldn't be bothered to say more. How intriguing, the tangled affair between Wang Chuer and Xiao Wutong. What a pity I missed the best part, she thought, but there was still a long story ahead, and plenty of amusement to come. She gave Wang Chuer a slight, teasing bow that was all politeness and perfect etiquette. Then please guide me from now on, my dear master, young Miss Wang Chuer. Vita's calm acceptance of the new contract eased the tension. There was no need to fight further. Lu Jingming looked up at the sky. Thunderclouds swirled, electricity danced like snakes, and the enormous azure dragon god clashed with Raiden Mei, who had become living lightning. Even from below, the scale of the battle and the energy rippling through the air were terrifying. Sister An, he said. He turned to Lei Muan with a faint smile. A flash of lightning sparked in his hand and a strangely shaped katana, trembling with purple light and electric arcs, materialized. I'll lend you this. Help put the sect master of the Clear Sky sect down. He handed it to her casually. For me? Lei Muan blinked, confusion and a little helplessness on her pretty face. She wasn't unskilled with a blade, but her specialty was long-range sniping. Her swordplay was rudimentary compared to a true swordsman. Still, the instant her fingers brushed the hilt, something odd happened. Buzz! The purple katana exploded with electricity. The blade vibrated as if it had a will of its own, warping and reorganizing within the storm of light. Lei Muan watched in astonishment as the weapon reshaped itself, but when it settled, she froze. There, lying in her palm, was not a blade at all, but an exquisitely made lipstick, metallic sheen, delicate circuit patterns on the casing. No, why? Why is it a lipstick? She blurted. She's called the Seven Thunders of Absolution, Lu Jingming said, smiling as if he'd expected this exact reaction. She's very, very temperamental. If the wielder doesn't have good compatibility with her or doesn't cater to her moods, she sulks, throws a tantrum even. That's what you saw. So, Lei Muan's face darkened at the thought. She dislikes me? To be disliked by a weapon felt absurd and a little humiliating. Lu Jingming chuckled. He was clearly enjoying this. Judging by what happened, yes, he teased gently. The Seven Thunders of Absolution was notorious for her caprice. Aside from him, perhaps only Raiden Mei could truly master all of her power. Lei Muan puffed her cheeks and pretended to be annoyed, but she couldn't hide her curiosity. A weapon that could change forms at will was too intriguing. All right, I won't tease you anymore, she mumbled. Lu Jingming tapped the lipstick with a finger, amused. Seven Thunders of Absolution, switch form, sniper rifle. Lightning flared. Lei Muan felt weight and balance shift in her hands as the lipstick elongated, extended, and reassembled itself amid crackling arcs. In a blink, it became a sleek, futuristic purple-black sniper rifle, long and lethal, its metal alive with restless electric filaments. The rifle looked like a work of art and terror combined. Wow, amazing! Lei Muan's eyes lit up. All her previous embarrassment vanished. As a top sniper, she was powerless against this form. It spoke to everything she valued. She ran a reverent hand along the cold, powerful body of the gun. The Seven Thunders of Absolution does more than change form, Lu Jingming nodded. Her rounds decompose matter, break things down to their atoms. She grants vision beyond normal three-dimensional limits. Through her scope, nothing in the world can hide. For you, she's a perfect match. Lei Muan's excitement grew. The Seven Thunders of Absolution sounded tailor-made for a sniper who lived for one shot, clean kills. The only sting was that the weapon had shown its dislike and only transformed when Lu Jingming commanded it. She felt a little regret, but Lu Jingming saw through her thoughts. Spend time with her. Learn to align your skill and heart with hers. With your talent, Sister An, you'll earn her true trust. He didn't need the Seven Thunders himself. He had the Black Abyss White Flower. Raiden Mei could likely unleash the artifact's full power, but Lei Muan's specialized sniping ability matched the Seven Thunders' sniper form perfectly. With both together, the effect would be devastating. Imagine a single shot from hundreds of miles away that erased not only flesh but the very existence of the target. Lei Muan inhaled sharply, gripped the rifle with steady hands, and smiled with the confident calm of a top sniper. She looked up at the massive dragon-shaped shadow in the sky. "Then, watch me." Up above, thunderclouds roiled like a black sea. The massive azure dragon god and the purple-haired Raiden Mei, now a streak of lightning, were locked in a brutal dance. Thunder and dragon breath collided with bone-rattling force. Each swing of the dragon's claws could shatter mountains and split seas. Each strike of Raiden Mei's katana summoned 10,000 bolts of heavenly thunder. New Tian, whose body had become a dragon, was powerful beyond reckoning. So powerful he was comparable to some beast gods. He was the Clear Sky Sect master, a representative of the sea god Tang San on the Douluo Continent. Yet he stood against a servant, even not at her absolute peak. Raiden Mei was incomparable to a limit Douluo. The fight had become a grinding war of attrition because New Tian's dragon flesh and tempered will had incredible resistance to lightning. Raiden Mei's strategy was patient attrition, not a quick, killing blow. Beneath that storm of fury, a quieter, deadlier intent had arrived. Leimuan, like a master hunter, raised the 7 thunders of absolution. The rifle's cold lines contrasted with her slight frame. The electric filaments on its body seemed to hum in response to her presence. Concentration cut the world away. Wind, energy fluctuations, trajectories. Everything became data flowing into the pinpoint focus behind her scope. Through the divine artifact's lens, the battlefield simplified into streams of energy and motion. At the heart of the dragon's vast spirit flow, a single crucial node glowed, the spirit core at the base of the dragon's neck. In that ocean of power, it stood out like a fragile lighthouse in the dark. "Locked on," she whispered. Her finger was steady as a monument. There was no booming report, only a faint hiss, like a blade-piercing crystal. A thread of condensed purple lightning, as fine as a hair, yet carrying decomposition power, flew. It ignored distance, tearing through the air with impossible speed, and slid silently into the junction of the Azure Dragon God's neck and body, straight into New Tian's spirit core. New Tian paused in mid-breath. What hit him was not mere injury, but the sensation of his very essence being unmade. It was not bleeding, there was an expanding, absolute void swallowing everything around the impact. Dragon scales, flesh, spirit power, all were dissolving into fundamental particles and vanishing as if they had never been. "Roar!" The cry that came was a wail of shock, pain, and disbelief, a sound stripped of force as life left him. His massive form trembled. The azure light around him faded like a candle snuffed by wind. He had never imagined this duel would end like this, finished by an unseen strike from far below. Even in his last moments, he could not see from where the attack had come. Raiden Mei, preparing her next thunderous assault, halted. She had seen that flash of energy. She recognized the signature, an aura she would never mistake, the power of the Hersher of Thunder. She hovered, eyes narrowing, watching the colossal being before her slump like a collapsing mountain. In only a few breaths, the Clear Sky Sect's sect master, New Tian, lost the power sustaining him and fell, his last roar a confused elegy that faded into the settling storm. Leimuan lowered the 7 thunders of absolution slowly. Purple filaments still shimmered along the rifle. She exhaled and turned to Jingming, offering a faint, satisfied smile. Mission accomplished. She had seen the nearly terrifying capability of the divine artifact. A single shot declared death and took it without fanfare. A level 99 limit Douluo, a living mountain of power, had been erased without even knowing whose hand struck him. That was the true terror of a master sniper, deciding life and death in silence from a distance. And the 7 thunders of absolution did more than ignore armor. It erased the target at the root, decomposing existence itself. End of chapter. New Tian's true spirit beast form was terrifying in its own right. His dragon scales were as strong as, if not stronger than, the best defensive spirit tools, yet the bullets from the 7 thunders of atonement treated them like paper. They pierced through in an instant and struck his core. As a level 99 titled Douluo, New Tian had cultivated the dual soul core system with isomorphic resonance, a system every spirit master coveted. It was the source of his strength and the foundation of his existence. But one of his soul cores was atomized by a single round from the 7 thunders of atonement. The other core, its perfect balance violently shattered, erupted in an uncontrollable energy rampage that accelerated his death from within. The combination of external destruction and an inner energy tantrum, assaults at both the physical and spiritual levels, was the true cause of this peerless expert's fall. Is it over? A streak of lightning sliced through the dust and blurred air, arriving in an instant as Raiden May. She glanced with mild curiosity at the oddly shaped sniper rifle in Lemuan's hands, its frame flickering with purple lightning, and then turned to Lu Jingming. Yes, good work, May. Lu Jingming smiled faintly and nodded, his tone deceptively calm, as if he had merely finished a small errand. The Clear Sky Sect's forces that had come to Mingdu this time, including the particularly important Tang Wutong, had been obliterated. No grudge, no malice? Perhaps. But their fate had been sealed from the moment they tethered themselves to Sea God Tongsan's cause. For Lu Jingming, their destruction was inevitable, an outcome of factional rules rather than personal vendetta. Shrek Academy's fate had been decided the same way. The reason he allowed Huanlong to raise Shrek City was rooted in this logic. Aside from promising, pliable youngsters like Ma Xiaotao and Han Roro, Lu Jingming intended no mercy for the Sea God Pavilion's elders, the rigid old guard blindly loyal to Tongsan. The old trunk had to be cut away to make room for new branches obedient to his will. Once the elder generation of powerhouses like Xuanzi vanished, Shrek Academy's leadership could be rebuilt and seized. Shrek's 10,000-year prestige was a priceless asset. What he needed was its brand and the rallying power it could provide to help unify the continent. A Shrek destroyed would be useless, but a reborn Shrek under his control would be invaluable. Just as Lu Jingming believed the battle was over, the divine sense clone of Sea God Tang San, Tang Wutong, and Niu Tian all dead, the aftermath waiting to be tidied up, something else was quietly preparing beneath the ruins. It was a final curtain call that could overturn everything in Mingdu. The instigator was the capricious, pleasure-loving, chaos-embracing masked fool, Huo Huo. Troublesome villains, disobedient actors, boring audiences. Huo Huo hummed an absurd little tune. Her slight body ghosted through the shadows above Mingdu, weaving and leaping. From her hands she kept producing harmless, almost playful Huo Huo dolls. Inside each doll, however, she had exquisitely replaced the core with a level 9 fixed installation soul guidance cannonball, enough to make any spirit master's soul flee and spirit scatter from sheer terror. She planted them at fragile ley line nodes, spirit tool energy junctions, and spatial tiers ripped open during the cataclysmic fighting, places all beneath Mingdu. Dozens of those dolls lay like malignant seeds under the dying giant city, quietly forming a devastating array that covered the entire area. Heh, ugly Antimatter Legion scum, let you get cocky and ruin my perfect script. Huo Huo's pout broke into an excited, expectant smile. Since the stage is ruined, why not blow it all up and build a bigger, crazier stage? Her plan was not mere revenge. She meant to use the terrifying energy from the synchronized detonation of those dozens of level 9 fixed installations, the kind of energy that could erase Mingdu, to force open a parallel world spacetime node pinpointed by Vita's all-seeing heavenly wisdom eye. She intended to use pure, violent destruction to blast a stable passage into an unknown parallel world. It would be an earth-shattering, unprecedented surprise for survivors, ally or enemy alike. Ready. Huo Huo froze at a safe vantage and struck an exaggerated conductor's pose as if cueing the climax of a demonic symphony. With a playful snap of her fingers, as if sending an invisible signal, dozens of fiery red points flared at once across Mingdu, on ruined districts, on scorched battlefield centers, burning with lethal intensity. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A dreadful chorus of explosions tore from every corner of Mingdu. They were many detonations layered together until they merged into one ultimate roar that split the sky and stole hearing. Blinding light and shredding heat swallowed everything. Buildings, corpses, metal, even air itself vaporized. A titanic orb of fire and light, the symbol of absolute annihilation, swelled outward, threatening to erase all existence within reach. But the explosion could not fully unleash. At the instant the blast's energy peaked, the hidden space-time node beneath Mingdu, precisely placed by Vita, was torn open by the overwhelming torrent. A chaotic, twisting passage ruptured from the core of the fiery orb. It was deeper, stranger, and far more turbulent than the explosion's light. Like a ravenous black hole, the passage greedily absorbed most of the explosion's energy and the matter in the blast zone. The destruction's power was warped and swallowed, feeding the passage and stabilizing it. The fiery orb collapsed like a punctured balloon, and everything contained within. What? What is this? Xuanzi and the others, fighting the Undead Legion and the Bulingren, step-away person, Legion, were struck dumb by the apocalyptic sight. The destructive light swept toward them with terror-inducing speed, and their guts went cold. They stopped chasing the Holy Spirit Church and fled instinctively away from the radiance. Even with Huohuo's skill at directing most of the explosion into the space-time node, the residual waves were enough to annihilate any title Douluo, including the level 98s like Xuanzi and Zhongli Wu. Run! Run now! Xuanzi screamed, his voice ragged. At that moment, he could barely save himself, much less worry over students. My lord is here. Jean's face was grave, but she did not flee alone. Resolutely, she unfurled her holy banner and uttered the true name of her noble phantasm. Brilliant, golden light hardened into a barrier that sheltered the weaker Nutian, Wu Feng, and the others behind her. Aglaia moved almost at once, weaving countless golden threads into a second massive shield that gently, firmly wrapped around Nutian and his fellows. Kalidra's eyes flashed. A peculiar chess piece dropped into the void. A blue halo lit beneath Aglaia and Jean. Time itself seemed to stutter. The defenses they had just released were briefly reset and reactivated. Jean's noble phantasm and Aglaia's golden thread shield surfaced almost simultaneously to form a double safeguard. Haixian's zither sword music swelled. A phantom wail of sound and vapor leapt and collided with the destructive wave, giving even a single precious moment more for the defenses to hold. Damn it! Huoyuhao couldn't help but curse. The Holy Spirit Church's baseness gleamed in this moment of crisis. Facing death, Zhongli Wu and other senior members abandoned their subordinates without hesitation, each rushing to save themselves. Thanks to the obstruction from the Undead and Bulingren legions, the Church's main force had already fled far. Now they longed for more legs. Yu Hao. A pink form burst through the chaos and slammed into Huoyuhao. It was Xiao Wu. She grabbed him and sprinted away, without hesitation. Even she dared not face the blast head-on, and under such violent energy disturbance, tearing open space would be suicide. General Jingyuan, Beibei's face had gone pale. Though he had left Shrek, he could not bear to watch his old teachers and classmates die. He looked imploringly at Jingyuan. Sigh, so be it. Jingyuan's sigh was soft. He could easily lead Beibei and Tangya to safety, but since Beibei cared for his old acquaintances, Jingyuan would not stand idly by. Majestic spiritual power, heed my command. Jingyuan's half-closed eyes snapped open. Golden lightning gathered and formed the towering phantom of a divine lord. The giant raised a spear condensed from pure lightning and hurled it at the sweeping wave of light. Thunder cracked, and serpents of lightning raged in the void. The destructive wave struck in an instant. Haisi Yin's sound whale bore the brunt and was wiped out the moment after. Aglaia's golden thread shield and the secondary layer formed by Kalidra were torn to pieces in ear-splitting roars. Just as the residual shockwave was about to engulf Ma Xiaotao and the others, Jingyuan's divine lightning spear struck it head-on. Boom! The explosion's force was nearly halved, but what remained was still immense, enough to send Ma Xiaotao and the others tumbling like leaves in a gale. If not for Jean's noble phantasm's 2 layers of protection at the last moment, students with weaker cultivation like Nu Tian and Wu Feng would have been shredded on contact. Even so, the impact knocked them unconscious, leaving them drifting in chaotic currents. The shockwave was only the beginning. As the core energy collapsed, an even more terrifying suction force, like a black hole, sucked outward from the newly stabilized chaos passage. Void soldiers of the Antimatter Legion, Xuanzi, the Sea God Pavilion Elders, Ma Xiaotao, Han Ruoro, Aglaia, Kalidra, Haixian, Huoyuhao, supported by Xiao Wu, Beibei clutching Tangya, Jingyuan, and countless ruins and debris, all were mercilessly grabbed by the passage's gravity and pulled toward that deep, unknown mouth like rivers running to the sea. What's going on? Even Lu Jingming showed surprise. Just as everything seemed settled, this shocking shift happened, completely unexpected. Vita, who who had only just been forced into submission beside him, couldn't hide a small, successful smirk. It seems little sister Huohuo succeeded. Guyuena and Jingliu suddenly appeared before Lu Jingming, roaring and ringing with clear sword cries and dragon roars. They easily blocked the destructive shockwave. The suction that followed could not budge Jingliu and Guyuena. Lu Jingming and the others were safely protected behind them. "Little one, it's a space-time passage." Herda's voice, playful, delighted, sounded directly in Lu Jingming's mind, pleased to see him thrown off balance. "Did you forget that a lawless masked fool sneaked in among these servants?" "Ho-ho!" Lu Jingming's mouth twitched. He had nearly forgotten the one who had gone almost unnoticed, yet managed to cause the greatest commotion. "The passage to a parallel world has been blasted open," Herda continued, with the tone of a mad scientist thrilled by her own discovery. "You should know which world it connects to. After all, we anchored it with the Thousand Worlds One vehicle before. Moreover, precisely because of the Holy Grail War's influence, the spatial structure around Mingdu was already fragile. Once a spatio-temporal tunnel formed here, its stability has far exceeded expectations. I'm afraid it will be difficult to close it quickly." Herda explained to Lu Jingming in a calm, factual tone. "What are the consequences?" he asked, watching the chaotic tunnel in the distance, an ever-hungry rift swallowing figures and ruins, his brows knitted. "Consequences? Quite interesting, actually." Herda sounded almost eager. "It's possible nothing catastrophic will happen. The tunnel might stabilize or slowly collapse on its own. But it's also possible the two worlds will begin to draw closer, or even start to merge because this tunnel is so unnaturally steady. Think about it, alternate world counterparts. I'm very curious whether they can coexist, or whether some cosmic law will force them to converge into one. This is unprecedented territory for research." She spoke like a scientist who cared more for discovery than danger. "I knew it. Wherever the masked fool shows up, surprises follow." Lu Jingming only gave a wry shake of his head. Sparkle's antics had upset his plans, but he wasn't alarmed. If the worlds did begin to merge, so what? He believed he had the power to suppress any chaos. His strength was growing at an astonishing rate, and with Jingliu, Yellow Springs, and Herda at his side, what was there to fear? Everything remained under his control. He narrowed his eyes toward the tunnel. "But Sparkle, don't let me catch you," he said, voice flat, "or I'll spank you until your butt blossoms." Far above, Xing Xiao and Fei Xiao, locked in fierce combat, were forced to break off as the ground-shaking change arrested their fight. Both pulled back, uncertain, and stared down at the massive energy vortex that had supplanted Mingdu. Under the protection of Huan Long, Shu Tianran watched the all-consuming black maw with a face as dark as boiling oil. The tunnel's stabilizing yet terrifying suction was not something human power could easily eliminate. Mingdu, the heart of the Sun-Moon Empire, had been effectively erased. There would be no rebuilding here. The capital would have to relocate. Sparkle, perched at the fringe of the energy turbulence, waved cheerfully at the vortex she'd opened. Her figure swayed in the wild gravitational winds as if she might be sucked in at any moment to continue her mischief in some new world. "Ha ha! Surprise! A new adventure begins. Everyone have fun." Vita's eyes flashed. That steady tunnel, the one she had secretly monitored and provided coordinates for, and the one Sparkle had blown open, was a golden opportunity to slip out from under Lu Jingming's control and lose herself in a parallel world. She lowered her energy resistance and began to prepare to follow the pull into the tunnel. Just as she stirred to transform into a streak of light, tsk, truly troublesome. Lu Jingming, who had been watching her, sneered. He knew Vita and Sparkle were kindred troublemakers. He didn't believe Sparkle acted alone. Someone had to have given the precise coordinates. He watched Vita's attempted escape and smiled with cold amusement. Almost at once, Istaru, who had been idly watching beside him, raised a single finger as if on a whim. Space and time around Vita were peeled away from the chaotic region by a higher law and frozen into absolute stillness. The sly smile that had been forming on Vita's face halted mid-bloom. The cunning light in her eyes dimmed. Even her thoughts seemed paused. The Stellaron hunter beside her, primed to launch, was arrested mid-pose by an invisible hand. Vita's attempt to slip away into the chaos was crushed. She was frozen, subdued. Lu Jingming regarded the immobilized Vita. The authority of time now held her like a specimen. He gave a small, casual wave. Istaru's gold eyes flickered. The oppressive stillness around Vita eased slightly, not enough to free her body, but enough to let her think and speak. She remained fixed as if encased in amber. "Miss Vita," Lu Jingming said softly as he stepped forward, a deceptively gentle smile on his face. "How about a bargain?" Vita's heavenly wisdom eye turned. Though physically restrained, her mind raced. A bargain? With her life and death at his mercy? She kept her expression composed and signaled for him to continue, curious what the handsome young man might want. "You like that spatio-temporal tunnel," Lu Jingming observed, nodding toward the rotating, sucking portal. "You want to go to a parallel world, don't you?" He shifted his gaze to the green, sleek machine, the Stellaron Hunter, standing by. "And I," he added with a casual lilt, "am very interested in your beautiful ride." Recognition flickered across Vita's face, amusement and curiosity mingling into a smile. So that was it. He desired her mecha. "How about it?" he asked lightly. "You hand over ownership and control of the Stellaron Hunter to me. In return, I will take you through that tunnel into the parallel world, and I will grant you temporary and complete freedom to have as much fun as you like there." He lingered on temporary and have as much fun, making the offer alluring, if limited. Vita's eyes narrowed. She explained in that soft, mocking cadence of hers. "Young man, you should know this machine isn't a physical object. It depends on the manifestation of my concept. It's a fantasy that exists because of me. If I die or merely think it away, it vanishes. Ownership would be no more than a reflection in a mirror, meaningless." She allowed herself a small, confident pause. "I don't think someone with your insight is unaware of that." Lu Jingming, surrounded by servants, clearly understood the nature of such beings. He chuckled, low and self-assured. "That's not something you need to worry about, Miss Vita. If I offer a deal, I have my own assurances." For him, making the conceptual real was not impossible. If the Stellaron Hunter was a projection of Vita's concept, he could, once its form and nature were well defined, sever its dependency on her and give it an independent foundation. He could make it objectively real. Once materialized, its ownership would no longer be bound to Vita's life or will. Lu Jingming's quiet confidence unsettled Vita. For the first time, she reevaluated him. There was a depth to him even her heavenly wisdom eye struggled to fathom. "Interesting," she murmured. The binding around her receded like a tide, not because Istaru relaxed her hold, but because Vita had a hidden card that let her pry free from the worst of the restraint. She flexed her wrists, crossed her arms, and for the first time appraised Lu Jingming like an equal, as if she wanted to see entirely through him. "Young man, you truly keep surprising me." Her tone was less playful now, edged with sincere curiosity. A man with secrets is always irresistible. "Oh," Lu Jingming's eyebrow rose. A half-smile curved his lips. "Have you heard the saying? Excessive curiosity about a man is often the first step toward falling for him." The remark struck nerves instantly. Guyuena, standing behind Lu Jingming, narrowed her amethyst eyes, her cold gaze fixed on Vita like a tangible blade. A faint dragon-shaped aura began to coil in the air. Firefly, who had been standing watch at his side, snapped her gaze toward Vita. Even Xia, whose smile was usually placid and forgiving, showed a barely perceptible ripple in her calm eyes and drifted half a step closer. Three women, each connected to Lu Jingming in different but intimate ways, converged their attention on Vita. The air grew taut, like a warning issued by territory already marked. Vita took in their reactions with a cunning grin. Instead of withdrawing, she delighted in the tension. Her smile widened, more playful than ever. She licked her lips and, with deliberate ambiguity, addressed Lu Jingming. "Young man, you really are interesting." Calm was boring to her. Chaos and undercurrents were her sport. The more jealous and ruffled the waters, the better the game. She leaned into the provocation. "Oh my, it seems the people around you care for you so much." She drew out her words in a sugary, almost seductive cadence and took a small, deliberate step forward. That tiny motion severed the thin buffer of safety and sharpened the three women's gazes. Vita's slender hand lifted as if to dust an invisible mote from Lu Jingming's shoulder. Her fingertips traced a deliberately ambiguous arc that nearly touched his collarbone. The movement seemed casual, but was loaded with intent. It seems difficult to negotiate this deal with you alone, young man. She tossed her head, a strand of gray hair falling, and let her eyes drift over Lu Jingming's face before feigning innocence as she glanced at Gu Yuan's iciness, Firefly's coiled tension, and Xiadai's fragile composure. Sisters, no need to be so tense. I'm only discussing something serious with your man. She emphasized your man and serious, with a teasing lilt that practically dripped provocation. Gu Yuan snorted. A silver dragon phantom flickered into being around her. Elements in the air stirred like eddies. She forced the words through clenched teeth. Stay away from him. Firefly didn't speak, but the transformation device at her hip trembled as if ready to activate. Her eyes never left the point where Vita's finger almost touched Lu Jingming. Xiadi's gentle smile threatened to break. She inhaled and said softly, though firm, "Miss Vita, please keep your dignity. Ming dislikes ostentatious behavior." Faced with the obvious hostility of the three, Vita only smiled wider. She thrived on precarious edges. She leaned half her body toward Lu Jingming and, close enough that only he could hear, breathed against his ear in a private whisper. "Look at how much they care about you," she murmured, warm breath and silk-soft temptation. "It's enviable. But wouldn't you rather have something more exciting? Come with me to that parallel world. Lose these little tales for a proper adventure." Every word, every look was intentional, an expert application of oil to a spark, deliberately stoking the flame. Vita made those ambiguous, intimate gestures on purpose, to provoke the three women, to see their limits, and to watch how Lu Jingming would handle the little storm she had stirred. For her, it was an impromptu performance, and Lu Jingming and the three jealous women were perfect actors. Feeling her warm breath by his ear and the soft press of her body, Lu Jingming watched the three young women bristle and couldn't help but give a helpless, wry smile. Vita was a born troublemaker. She couldn't go a second without creating chaos. He raised a hand, not to push her away, but to separate her from him with a subtle, practiced motion, taking half a step back to widen the risky closeness. His voice carried a mild warning. "Miss Vita, your performance is admirable, but before we chase any more adventures, let's finish the proper transaction. After all, the Duxing, the Star Traveler, is still technically yours." He skillfully steered the mood back to business, placating the three women and giving Vita an elegant exit before things could turn violent. Vita, who knew when to stop, laughed and retreated with her usual mysterious air, as if she hadn't just leaned against him. All right, let's talk business." She blinked mischievously. "But little brother, don't forget I'm still looking forward to more exciting adventures." That remark stiffened Gu Yuan, Liu Ying, and Xiadi. Gu Yuan shot Lu Jingming a fierce glare. Vita's eyes glittered with the glee of a child who had just gotten her favorite toy. She'd traded a conceptual creation that would vanish when she left for a ticket to a parallel world and temporary freedom, and come away with the delicious chaos of the love triangle she'd just sown. A buy-one-get-three fun package. "So, what's your choice? You don't have to accept. I won't force you." Lu Jingming's tone was meaningful. He really wouldn't force her to hand over the Duxing, the Star Traveler. But if Vita died, wouldn't the Star Traveler be ownerless? That wouldn't count as forcing it, would it? All right. Who asked you to be so sincere, little brother?" Vita spread her hands in mock helplessness, grinning triumphantly. She extended a slender finger and traced a complex sigil in the air. A faint glow flowed from her fingertip and merged into the core of the stationary green mech, the Duxing. Immediately, Lu Jingming felt a bond form between himself and the machine. Its foundation still needed to be reinforced by his authority later, but the right to use it had been transferred. "There, your new toy," Vita said, patting the mech's cold armor as if it were a pet. "Now it's your turn to keep your promise. When do we set sail for the parallel world?" Lu Jingming tested the new connection and nodded. "We can go now." He turned to Leimuan, Istaru, and Durandal. "Sister An, the follow-up here and Sea Abyss City will be left to you for the time being." He had intended for Liu Ying and Xiadi to return to Sea Abyss City with Leimuan and rest, but before he finished, two pairs of expectant eyes fixed on him. Though Liu Ying didn't speak, the hazy look that always lived in her eyes had gone. She stepped forward, standing at Lu Jingming's side to make her choice by action. Xiaodai tugged gently at his sleeve, smiling softly but speaking with resolve. Aming, I want to go too. An extra person means extra care, and Miss Vita seems to need someone to keep an eye on her. She glanced pointedly at Vita, who watched with bright interest. Gu Yuena, though silent, snorted and crossed her arms, her decision obvious. Jingliu stood expressionless, as if nothing mattered to her, but her mere presence conveyed agreement. Lu Jingming looked at the worry, jealousy, and stubborn determination in Liu Ying and Xiadi's faces and felt his heart soften. He understood their real fear, not danger so much as Vita herself, that vixen, continuing to stir trouble in the parallel world and wrap him up in it. Faced with their rare, coquettish stubbornness, he couldn't bring himself to refuse. All right, he sighed, half helpless, half amused. Then you'll come. Yay, Liu Ying gave a soft cheer. Xiadai's face remained calm, but her eyes brightened and her tension eased. Everyone nearby watched. Lei Muan giggled, nudging Durandal and whispering, See, I told you Aming's soft-hearted. Especially with pretty girls, he can't say no. She wore the indulgent smile of an older sister enjoying the show. Durandal, bewildered, frowned and whispered back in puzzlement, Isn't this going to a parallel world? Why is the atmosphere so strange? Shouldn't personnel arrangements be based on optimal combat efficiency? She lacked the social instincts to read the tangled emotions. Istaru remained languid and uninterested, even yawning. The petty jealousy playing out was less interesting than cloud shapes. Only when her gaze briefly passed over Lu Jingming did a faint, elusive glimmer flash in her eyes before fading. Raiden Mei indicated she'd seen enough and wasn't surprised. Wang Chuer had just completed her fusion with Tang Wutong and paid little mind to the scene. Jing Liu stood by Lu Jingming's side, sword in hand, emotionlessly watching. Her eyes, like a cold pool, took in every subtle interaction. When he agreed to bring Liu Ying and Xiadi, she nearly imperceptibly inclined her head and allowed a very faint, resigned smile. An understanding of her disciple's nature. Sometimes hard as stone, sometimes soft as cotton. Vita's grin widened. She leaned in close again and cooed in a saccharine voice. Oh my, little brother, your harem is truly impressive. This trip to the parallel world is bound to be entertaining. Several icy stares followed. Lu Jingming shot her an exasperated look, too tired to be drawn into more of her mischief. He steadied himself and nodded to Lei Muan and the others. I'll leave things here to you. Then he led the group, Gu Yuena, Liu Ying, Xiadi, Jing Liu, and a delighted Vita, into the slowly stabilizing space-time tunnel. Lei Muan waved, eyes full of sisterly concern and the amusement of watching a good show. Durandal stayed solemn, brow furrowed, still focused on logistics. Istaru drifted into her usual indifference, lost in thought. Raiden Mei felt a subtle relief that she hadn't been taken along. Her mind was elsewhere, on a photo Lu Jingming had just sent to her spirit tool phone. In it, a woman stood under a red paper umbrella in misty rain, her face 80% identical to Raiden Mei's, but her temperament colder and lonelier, as if carrying countless lost memories. Raiden, Wanchuan Guardian, Mei. Raiden Mei murmured the name and touched the screen. She knew of parallel selves from theory and from remnants of the previous civilization, but seeing such a similar yet utterly different self was unsettling and strangely thrilling. She wanted to get back to Sea Abyss City and meet this Yellow Springs self. Inside the tunnel, sensations bent and splintered, colors and forms twisted like a kaleidoscope of broken mirrors. For Lu Jingming, though, the weightless distortion felt oddly familiar. He had traversed parallel worlds before with the aid called Thousand Realms by the Door, and the crossing had the same essence, even if the earlier tunnel had been more stable. A soft glow emanating from Herta's use of Thousand Realms by the Door formed a protective barrier that shielded Gu Yuena, Liu Ying, Xiadi, Jing Liu, and the wide-eyed Vita, muting the chaotic effects of space-time turbulence. After an interval that might have been an instant or an eternity, a steady light formed in the darkness ahead and expanded until it surrounded them. Solid ground came back beneath their feet. The air smelled of earth and vegetation. They had arrived at the edge of a vast, primeval forest. Towering ancient trees rose like columns, their canopies forming a ceiling that obscured the sky. Verdant mountains rolled in the distance, and the distant roar of a mighty river reached them. Sunlight filtered through the leaves in soft, dappled patterns. The life energy here was thick and active, wild with untamed vitality. Is this the Stardo Great Forest? Guyuana breathed. As the Silver Dragon King, her attunement to life force and elemental energy was keenest. The forest's aura felt familiar. Its spectrum of life origin matched the core area of the Stardo Great Forest, but under closer inspection, there were subtle differences. Jingming spread his mental force like ripples and found no recent human traces or abnormal energy. The large group sucked into tunnels earlier, including Shrek Academy and Huo Yuhao, clearly had not landed here. They had been scattered to other locations in this world. This is the Stardo Great Forest, Jingming confirmed, walking to Gu Yena's side. But the Stardo Great Forest in this parallel world might not be exactly the same as the one you know. He knew that small differences between parallel worlds could lead to vast divergences. For example, the Lake of Life at the core of the forest in this world was occupied not by Tian and a horde of vicious beasts, but by two 100,000-year spirit beasts, the Sky Azure Bull Python and the Titan Giant Ape. The 10 great vicious beasts, or even Guyuana's counterpart, might not exist in this world's history at all. Parallel worlds are like different leaves on a tree, he said slowly. Their origins are similar, but they can grow in completely different directions. Even if familiar people or things appear, their essences, experiences, and fates may be entirely different. Guyuana was quiet for a moment, tucking a silver strand behind her ear. She had already sensed the two powerful spirit beast auras toward the Lake of Life and detected no vicious beast-level presences and no trace of another self. The unfamiliarity made her uneasy, but also brought a strange relief. If a counterpart had actually existed here, she wouldn't know whether to eliminate it as an anomaly or attempt to coexist, a dilemma without a solution. Jingming could not fully share that inner conflict. In his view, if a duplicate truly existed, there was only one answer: a fight to the death. His existence had to remain singular. He could not allow a replica to share it. Still, he felt the probability that he had a counterpart in another parallel world to be vanishingly small. End of chapter. Let's go. Jingming drew his thoughts back and spoke to the group. I've been to this world once before and left a few arrangements. I haven't checked on it in a while. Now's a good time to see how things have developed. He knew perfectly well that the space-time tunnel opened by the firework connected to the parallel world that the Black Tower had anchored to Thousand Realms by the door. It was also the world where he had first experimented with the World Tree. That experiment had laid the groundwork for later cooperation with the Douluo Plain Will and the Holy Grail War, ultimately producing mutual benefit. He had even planted a sapling of the World Tree here. Though far less complete and powerful than the one in the main world, it was quietly drawing negative energy from the planet, converting it into nutrients and promoting its healthy evolution. The unusually high levels of heaven and earth origin chi and the vigorous life force in the Stardo Great Forest before them were clear proof the World Tree was at work. The environment's improved a lot, Jingming mused. Some of those negative energy entities that were breeding have been cleared out. He recalled the few particularly powerful negative energy aggregates he detected earlier. The entity outside Heaven Do City embodying him and Yingxing, and the entities representing Kevin, Fuhua, Oser, and others. If even those had been resolved, it meant that either Bibidong or Qian Renshui in this world had successfully stepped into the divine rank domain. As for Tang San in this world, Jingming thought his old path to obtaining the legacy of the Sea God and Asura God had long since been disrupted. Sea God Island was occupied by Oser's negative energy entity, and Slaughter City was held by Kevin's. Too many variables blocked Tang San's original road to godhood. Unless the fate and karma laws of this parallel world were unusually active and stubborn and forced history back onto its original track, it would be hard for Tang San to repeat the same ascent. From Jingming's perception, fate and karma here seemed rather inert. He had once overturned this world's history and had not been punished by a powerful karma backlash or fate correction force. That suggested that in this world, the general trend was not immutable. Given sufficient power and means, anyone could rewrite history. After all, parallel worlds are infinite, each with its own origins and trajectory. Differences are the norm. He took one last look at the forest, familiar and strange at once, and a meaningful smile touched his lips. Let's see what this world, where I sowed the seeds of change, has grown into. After the cataclysmic Holy Grail War in Mingdu, time moved on, and a month passed in the blink of an eye. During that month, through both open and covert channels, the major empires and top powers across the Douluo Continent gradually learned of the astonishing upheaval in Mingdu of the Sun-Moon Empire. Details varied and rumors multiplied, but several core facts spread like wildfire and shook the entire continent. Mingdu, the Sun-Moon Empire's pride and the heart of the continent's soul guidance technology, the so-called City That Never Falls, had been reduced to scorched earth in a series of unimaginable battles. It had been wiped off the map, leaving behind only a chilling space-time tunnel and a bottomless abyss. Confirmed reports said that the Sea God Pavilion Elder of Shrek Academy, top figures from the Clear Sky sect, and core members of the Holy Spirit Church had all appeared in Mingdu and been involved in battles beyond comprehension, suffering heavy casualties. Even several Limit Douluo, the continent's pinnacles, were confirmed dead. Worse, a bizarre passage to an unknown world had opened in Mingdu and swallowed many powerhouses, including remnants of Shrek Academy and some members of the Holy Spirit Church. Their whereabouts and fates were unknown. Adding to the turmoil, the Sun-Moon Empire's emperor had suddenly died. Crown Prince Shu Tianran quickly consolidated power with the backing of a potent force and filled the political vacuum. While the continent's powers were still trying to digest the shock, with internal discord and suspicion running high, a dramatic proclamation came from the Sun-Moon Empire's new center of power, temporarily based in a large military stronghold called Yangcheng, southeast of the original Mingdu. Shu Tianran officially ascended the throne there, proclaiming the rebirth of the Sun-Moon Empire. The imperial palace in Yangcheng was renamed New Mingdu, and the fuse of war was lit. At the grand, somber coronation, he wore a black dragon robe embroidered with the sun and moon totem. With an expression of grief turned to fury, Shu Tianran pinned the blame for Mingdu's destruction and the suffering of millions squarely on Shrek Academy and the three great empires, the Star Luo, Tianhun, and Duling. In the narrative spun by Sun-Moon Empire officials, it was a vile, premeditated terrorist attack. Shrek Academy had infiltrated Mingdu to sabotage the Empire's Soul Guidance Research Core, causing a massive explosion, while the three great empires coordinated from outside and even used unknown, inhumane, forbidden means to complete the atrocity. The more extraordinary phenomena, servants, the Holy Grail War, and the Parallel World Passage were deliberately downplayed, distorted, or blurred by official channels. Officials explained them away as terrifying anomalies caused by evil spirit abilities employed by the three great empires to cover their crimes. The propaganda machine roared to life across the empire. Soul guidance screens, flyers, official notices, and impassioned street speeches relentlessly framed Shrek Academy and the three great empires as unforgivable warmongers who had massacred civilians. Shu Tianran, invoking revenge, shame, and the need to defend the empire's dignity, declared a national state of war and called on every citizen to unite in hatred and prepare to reclaim the blood debt. The manipulation of public sentiment proved devastatingly effective. The destruction of Mingdu was an undeniable fact. The casualties and displacement of millions were a deep wound. Grief and humiliation needed an outlet. Under systematic state guidance, that grief was channeled into rage. Hatred for Shrek Academy and the three great empires spread like wildfire across the Sun-Moon Empire, fueling a pro-war public that swelled the empire's war machine. Across the continent, the clouds of war thickened. The Star Luo, Tianhun, and Duling empires, initially stunned by Shu Tianran's accusations, promptly denied them and condemned the Sun-Moon Empire's claims as a pretext for aggression. Almost immediately, the three empires coordinated in a rare display of unity. Border garrisons were put on highest alert. Legions of elite troops began massing efficiently along the long frontier with the Sun-Moon Empire. On the Star Luo's western border and Tianhun's southern border, banners filled the sky, camps stretched on, and the distinctive glow of activated soul guidance arrays shone day and night. The atmosphere became suffocating with tension. Even the Dueling Empire, which did not share a direct border with the Sun-Moon Empire, mobilized elite domestic forces and, by borrowing passage, sent support to the Star Luo and Tianhun defenses. All three great empires, recognizing the threat, quickly formed a solid alliance and vowed to stand against the Sun-Moon Empire. Ruling elites in each state understood that an unprecedented, full-scale continental war, one that would decide the fate of empires, seemed inevitable. High officials urgently mobilized national resources, hoarded strategic supplies, and began massive conscription of registered spirit masters, shifting every national instrument toward a wartime footing. Under the looming pressure of human war, the earlier incident, the beast tide that had destroyed Shrek City and prompted the three empires to deploy troops at the edge of the Stardew Great Forest, was put on hold. Compared with an imminent human war about empire survival, the threat of spirit beasts receded. The three empires made a rational, if helpless, choice: withdraw their main forces from the forest's periphery, leaving only a few elite reconnaissance teams to monitor spirit beast movements and prevent opportunistic attacks. All major military resources, spirit master assets, and strategic focus were redirected to countering the Sun-Moon Empire. The spirit beast problem could be delayed. After all, the beasts had seemed to quiet after the Shrek City incident, and the truth of that event still contained uncertainties. But the Sun-Moon Empire's military might was now pointed directly at the three great empires' throats. A month earlier, the climactic confrontation above the ruins of Mingdu had been abruptly halted by the appearance of the space-time tunnel. When Fei Xiao confirmed through special channels that Princess Vina had safely returned to the Tianhun Empire, she chose to retreat rather than fight Xingxiao to the death. For her, the Holy Grail War had ended when the tunnel opened. To continue would be pointless and risk being stranded on those ruins forever. Her instincts, tempered by countless battles, warned that hesitating a moment longer would have left her vulnerable to Huanlong's sneak attack. With Huanlong's recovered strength, Fei Xiao would have stood no chance. Her timely withdrawal injected a powerful stabilizer into the Tianhun Empire, which had been shaken by Dubuxi's severe injuries and the losses among the body sect's elites. Having a top powerhouse intact steadied Tianhun's morale. So, a month on, the continent's picture had clarified. Under Shu Tianran's leadership, the Sun-Moon Empire had fully activated its war machine, united by hatred and drawing its bow to full tension. The three great empires had been forced into close cooperation, building solid defenses along a long frontier, waiting tensely for the storm's arrival. The Stardew Great Forest's spirit beast forces unexpectedly gained a period of respite and became spectators to an approaching human civil war. The continent's future was shrouded in smoke and uncertainty. Sea Abyss City, the technological marvel fused with soul guidance technology, had become the continent's preeminent power, since Mingdu lay in ruins and New Mingdu was still under construction. Its distinctive architecture and flowing energy light gave it an awe-inspiring presence. In a simply furnished but cozy guest room in the city, Xiao Xiao and Zhang Nanan sat together, while Qingque animatedly told them about board games and urban legends from her hometown, Xianzhou Luofu. She tried to ease the heavy anxiety that had pressed on the two girls for days with lighthearted stories. Over the past month, they had been hit with too much terrible news. Shrek Academy's members had been swallowed by the space-time tunnel. The Sun-Moon Empire and the three great empires were on a collision course, and worst of all, Shrek City had fallen. When the rumor first reached them, Zhang Nanan and Xiao Xiao had refused to believe it. How could a legacy 10,000 years old, the holy land of the continent's spirit masters, vanish overnight? But when Zhang Nanan saw her mother, rescued by Ningguang and brought safely to Sea Abyss City, and heard the truth of the beast tide from her, denial was no longer possible. Both girls sank into deep confusion and helplessness. Zhang Nanan was somewhat stronger. After her grief, she felt grateful. At least her mother was safe, and Ningguang watched over them. Though she cared for Shrek Academy, she wouldn't fall apart entirely. Xiao Xiao was different. Her attachment to Shrek Academy ran deep. It was where she'd grown up, where her dreams began. Now she felt homeless and bereft, at a loss for what to do. For a long while, she could only sit there, stunned and helpless. End of this chapter. Chapter 381, Rebuilding Shrek. Return to Shrek? The academy was already a ruin. How could anyone expect the teachers and students to simply walk back into it? They were trapped in an unknown spatial temporal tunnel. Their fate was uncertain. Return to her family? That thought flickered through Xiao Xiao's mind too, but when she imagined her teachers and classmates with their lives hanging in the balance, she hesitated. In the end, at Zhang Nanan's invitation and Zhang Lexuan's gentle insistence, Xiao Xiao chose to stay in Sea Abyss City for the time being, waiting for familiar faces like Ma Xiao Tao and Xuanzi to return. That waiting became her faint hope. A soft knock interrupted Qing Kui's quiet narration. Zhang Nanan rose, smoothed her sleeves, and opened the door. Outside stood a Jinwei guard in Sea Abyss uniform, expression respectful. Behind him were several young spirit masters, travel-worn and dust-streaked, grief plain on their faces. They were simply dressed. Bewilderment and sorrow filled their eyes. At the head of the group was Wu Ming, a fiery, straightforward inner court disciple of Shrek Academy. Her once blazing hair was now dulled and tied loosely at the back. Her face had gone pale, her eyes dimmed, and her lips were pressed tight against a pain she was trying to hold back. "Senior Sister Wu?" Zhang Nanan blinked, surprised and relieved at once. She stepped aside to usher them in. "Please come in." Xiao Xiao stood immediately. When she saw her senior sister, tears sprang to her eyes. "Senior Sister Wu, you're alive!" Nanan, Xiao Xiao, and Miss Qing Kui. Wu Ming recognized them, and the facade she'd been keeping finally crumpled. Her voice broke into sobs. The other surviving inner court disciples, Chu Qingqian among them, bowed their heads, shoulders shaking, eyes quickly reddening. The room's warmth was replaced by a crushing sorrow. Xiao Xiao and Zhang Nanan felt it too. Their noses prickled and tears pooled. For a long moment, none of them could speak. "We've heard about the academy," Zhang Nanan managed at last, forcing herself steady. She took Wu Ming's arm gently. "To see you here and safe, that's a mercy in the midst of this." "It is a mercy," Xiao Xiao echoed, then flung herself into Wu Ming's arms as if to expel all the fear and grief of the past days. Familiar faces from Shrek were a comfort she hadn't realized how desperately she needed. "Yes, we're alive, but the academy is gone." Wu Ming clung to Xiao Xiao, tears streaming. She closed her eyes and through intermittent sobs began to recount the nightmare, the overwhelming tide of spirit beasts, the terrifying leaders among the vicious beasts, Shrek's stout walls collapsing like paper, and the meteor that tore through the sky as if the apocalypse had come. She choked out the names of those who had died: Dean Yan Xiaojie, Vice Dean Shan Linner, many elders of the Sea God Pavilion, who had sacrificed themselves, covering the retreat so their students might live. "Dean Yan and the others sent us away," she said between sobs. "They said the legacy of Shrek must not be extinguished." Her words cut like knives, carving into the hearts of every student present who had once been proud of Shrek. Chu Qingtian and the others bowed their heads. Their faces were drained. They had been waiting under the protection of His Majesty Tianying in Douluo City, for Elder Xuan and Senior Xiao Tao to return from Mingdu and for any chance of rebuilding. Then more bad news had arrived: the shocking upheaval in Mingdu and the disappearance of Elder Xuan's group. One blow after another had nearly shattered their faith. Before Wu Ming could break completely, Chu Qingqian stepped forward to take over, his voice hoarse and tired. He let out a long, helpless sigh that said more than words. Everyone understood the terrible implication. He went on, "It wasn't until Princess Shujuju returned to Douluo from Sea Abyss City that we learned Xiao Xiao and Nanan were alive and here. So we begged His Majesty for permission to come." Among the steady stream of disasters, the news that Xiao Xiao and Zhang Nanan were safe had been the only bright spot. A calm, steady voice cut through the grief from the doorway. Everyone looked up to find Zhang Lexuan standing there, her arrival unnoticed until then. She wore an elegant gown and an expression of composed kindness that seemed to soothe the room. Her gaze swept over the tired, grief-marked faces of Wu Ming, Chu Qingqian, and the others. "Senior Sister Lexuan." Seeing her, a dim spark of hope alighted in Wu Ming and the others. Zhang Lexuan and they had been rivals and rivals turned acquaintances during the All-Continent Advanced Spirit Master Academy Soul Fighting Tournament. Despite rivalry, Genuine friendships had formed across academies. Nothing could keep women like Han Ruoruo, Ma Xiaotao, and Zhang Lexuan from connecting. For many here, Lexuan's presence was a balm. Is it true what you were saying? Xiaotao and the others, could they be alive? Wu Ming asked without ceremony, grabbing Lexuan's wrist as if clutching a final thread of hope. The burden of rebuilding Shrek crushed her. The safety of mentors like Ma Xiaotao was all she could think about. Zhang Lexuan patted her wrist gently to calm her and answered with quiet certainty. Yes, Sea Abyss's detections show that the spatial temporal tunnel which opened in Mingdu has an unusually stable structure. It's not the kind of turbulent flow that destroys things. Although Xiaotao and her group were swept into it and their destination is unknown, the chance they met with disaster is not high. She added more concrete information. In fact, some people from Sea Abyss City have already passed through the tunnel to explore the other side. The initial reports indicate the tunnel itself is safe. The time for exploration has been short and the range limited, so we haven't managed to make contact with Elder Xuan or Xiaotao yet. The person she had in mind was Lu Jingming, someone known to have a peculiar connection with the Black Tower, and Zhang Lexuan did not worry about his willingness to cross such a tunnel. She also understood deeper secrets of the world that she couldn't share now. The full truth was not something to reveal in this fragile moment. Really? That's wonderful. Thank you, Senior Sister Lexuan. Wu Ming felt some of her taut nerves loosen. How much pressure she had carried. Shrek's 10,000-year foundation wiped out in an instant, respected teachers fallen, the future uncertain. The thought of losing core friends like Ma Xiaotao and Han Ruoruo had been unbearable. Lexuan's words gave her a fragile lift of hope. Zhang Lexuan sat gracefully, poured tea, and handed a cup to Wu Ming. Then she asked, softly but directly, Xiaoming, let's set aside news of Xiaotao for a moment. What plans do you have for the future? Wu Ming held the warm porcelain between trembling fingers and could only smile bitterly. Plans? You know me. I'm good at charge and fight, not at organizing a rebuild like this. The Academy's survival, everyone's future. I don't know where to begin. For now, I can only take it step by step. Chu Qingtian and the others nodded. They were talented combatants, but lacked the experience and boldness to oversee such a grand project alone. Zhang Lexuan considered them, then proposed a clear, practical plan. Since you have no definite direction and the original Shrek site is no longer a place to return to, Sea Abyss City will step forward. We'll designate an appropriate area in the city to help you re-establish the foundation of Shrek Academy. Ruoruo and Xiaotao's return is uncertain. We cannot wait forever. The legacy of Shrek must continue. Her proposal aligned quietly with parts of Lu Jingming's broader plans for Sea Abyss City. More directly, Wu Ming and the others were the most legitimate candidates to carry Shrek's name forward. Having them lead the reconstruction in Sea Abyss City made perfect sense emotionally and politically. If Xuanzi and the Sea God Pavilion elders had still been in command, they might have opposed such a plan, but they were trapped in another world, their return unknown. For Wu Ming and the others, confused, exhausted, Lexuan's offer was timely salvation. When she finished, surprise and gratitude flooded their faces. Wu Ming almost rose with excitement. Senior Sister Lexuan, you mean it? Sea Abyss City would really help us rebuild Shrek Academy? Of course, Zhang Lexuan said. Shrek's legacy stretches 10,000 years. If that spirit and glory were to be severed now, it would be a loss for the entire Spirit Master world. She continued, practical and thorough. Sea Abyss will provide land and financial support. We'll also temporarily transfer experienced administrators and core teachers from St. Freya Academy to help you. They can assist with setup, regulations, and student recruitment. Rebuilding an academy cannot rest on a handful of survivors alone. Her plan removed almost every immediate obstacle. Zhang Lexuan understood that the ambition to rebuild needed more than courage. It needed resources and administrative experience. For the tired Shrek disciples, the opportunity to preserve their academy's name and continue its legacy was everything. Questions about long-term ties between Shrek and Sea Abyss City could be settled later. Comforted and grateful, Wu Ming, Hua Yao, and the others bowed repeatedly. In their eyes, Zhang Lexuan was more than an old acquaintance. She was a reliable ally who had extended a hand in their darkest hour. Zhang Lexuan rose and gave them one final instruction. Rest here in Sea Abyss City. Recover your strength. I'll arrange immediate steps to begin rebuilding. You have all been through too much. Leave this to me. Her words flowed like warm spring water through their weary hearts. After she left them to comfort one another, Zhang Lexuan's outwardly gentle expression shifted into a quieter, more contemplative one. She didn't go far. She walked to a nearby luxury hotel, one of Sea Abyss City's landmark buildings, with private top-floor rooms that commanded excellent views. Pushing open the ornate door to a private suite, she let the warm light and faint incense of the room wash over her. 4 figures were already waiting inside the private room: Changli, Jinxi, Keiqing, and Ningguang. Though Lu Jingming was the nominal city lord of Sea Abyss City, the day-to-day operations, strategic planning, and most of the real power rested with these 4 exceptionally capable women. They had been immediately informed of Wu Ming and the remaining Shrek forces' arrival, and of their meeting with Zhang Lexuan. When Zhang Lexuan entered, Keiqing spoke first, her delicate brows knitting as her fingertips tapped the table in a small, restless rhythm. "Lexuan, we know the situation," she said. "Taking in those students and helping to rebuild Shrek Academy will quickly absorb its prestige and legacy. But Shrek has 10,000 years of history. Its ideas are deeply rooted, its identity long established. It worships independence and glory. I'm worried that even if we rebuild the Academy, getting them to truly integrate into Sea Abyss City's system, convincing them to let go of their old pride, won't be easy. Complications are inevitable." Keiqing's caution came from an intimate knowledge of how entrenched old powers could be. Before Zhang Lexuan could answer, Ningguang had already moved to the floor-to-ceiling window. Her gaze seemed to pass through the building, fixated on Xiao Xiao, Wu Ming, and their location. A faint, knowing smile touched her lips. "Keiqing's concerns aren't unreasonable," Ningguang said, her voice smooth and composed. "If we were facing a complete, intact Shrek Academy, this would be almost impossible, but times have changed." She paused, then continued, "The issue isn't the abstract idea of Shrek Academy, it's who represents it now. Many of the older pillars, people like Xuanzi, are gone or their fates unknown. Leaders like Yan Shaozhi fell in battle. What's left is a group of young people who suddenly lost their support, their homes destroyed, their teachers dead, confused and helpless about the future. What they need most now are basic things: survival, security, and a place to place their faith under the name of Shrek." Changli lounged back on the sofa and chuckled lightly. Ningguang's right. These kids, many barely in their 20s, have only ever focused on cultivation. Even the most talented among them don't know much about winning hearts, managing factions, or long-term governance. They need a lifeline, a guide to pull them out of this mess. We can provide that. Her tone carried the calm certainty of someone used to power, neither contemptuous nor triumphant, simply realistic. Jinxi swept her gaze over the room and landed on Zhang Lexuan. Her voice was clear and level. "Don't worry too much. Shrek's glory is in the past. In the future it will, like St. Freya Academy, become a Spirit Master Academy under Sea Abyss City, training talent for us and contributing its value. Even at its height, with the strength Sea Abyss City has now, we'd have been able to contend with Shrek. Now, it's far easier." Her tone sharpened. "If we can't integrate a leaderless team and guide a group of lost youths, we would look incompetent. How could we live up to Aming's trust and defend and strengthen this city?" Jinxi's words stiffened Ningguang's and Keiqing's expressions. Lu Jingming had entrusted them with almost all military and political power. They could not betray that trust. While Lu Jingming's hands-off style was known, that only made their responsibility clearer. Jinxi's statement reflected the consensus in the room. This was not just an opportunity to gain external resources, it was a test of their competence. Zhang Lexuan listened, then nodded slightly, a flash of resolve in her eyes. Rebuilding Shrek wasn't just about providing facilities and funding. It would require carefully guiding Wu Ming and the others, making sure the revived Shrek carried Sea Abyss City's imprint from the start. That would demand patience, tact, and well-timed shows of strength. "All right," she said, "the plan to rebuild Shrek Academy is provisionally approved. The subordinates can work out the details." Changli tapped the tabletop, bringing the room's focus back to her. her voice turned grave. Next, we need to talk about the more immediate danger, the Sun Moon Empire's movements. The mood shifted. Peace on the Douluo Continent already hung by a thread. Everyone knew it. We've gathered the specifics through the simulated universe and our intelligence networks, Changli continued, tracing idle patterns on the table. Although the Holy Grail War in Mingdu ended unexpectedly when the space-time channel opened, the consequences are far from resolved. Not all the participating servants withdrew, especially the two Lords of Annihilation who remain entrenched in the Sun Moon Empire. Their antimatter legion suffered catastrophic losses in that explosion. Fewer than 1 in 10 survived. But the survivors still have significant power, and the Sun Moon Empire's own soul guidance technology and military foundation weren't fundamentally destroyed by Mingdu's fall. Kei-Ching crossed her arms and leaned against the window, her purple eyes steady. Her twin ponytails swayed as she spoke. Xu Tianran's manipulation of public opinion was ruthless. He shifted the blame for Mingdu's destruction onto Shrek Academy and the 3 great empires in a masterful stroke. Now, the call for revenge within the Sun Moon Empire has spread like wildfire. A few clear-headed voices exist, but they are drowned out by national grief and ignorance. People are swept along by the prevailing sentiment. Zhang Lexuan sighed. Even if someone knew the inside story, who would believe them? Who would accept that Mingdu's destruction, a symbol of the empire's glory, originated with actions by their own high-ranking officials? The truth is too unbelievable. Ningguang nodded and moved to the liquor cabinet, pouring herself a small glass of amber liquid. Exactly. Truth has lost its power right now. The empire's propaganda machine has seized the moral high ground, or rather, the emotional high ground of tragedy. The populace is enraged by vast losses and official guidance. Calls for war and revenge fill every city. In such collective emotion, room for rational thought shrinks to almost nothing. Jinshi turned and looked out at the sunset. The afterglow painted the sky orange-red, a heavy calm before a storm. A full-scale war is inevitable, she said softly, but it won't break out instantly. I estimate the timing will be delayed by 1 to 2 years. I agree, Changli said. Rebuilding is the main reason. Restoring a shattered capital on the scale of Mingdu takes time. Even with the Empire's top soul guidance technology and vast resources, it would be difficult to finish in under a year. Converting New Mingdu into the capital will also take time. Secondly, Xu Tianran has just taken the throne. His position is not yet fully consolidated. The Empire's factions need time to be appeased and integrated. That, too, costs time. Kei-Ching stepped to the center of the room and projected a holographic map of the Douluo Continent. She pointed out the divisions of force and summarized the simulated universe's big data analysis. Once they finish internal consolidation and war preparations, the Sun Moon Empire's strategy becomes predictable, she said. Based on a comparative analysis of conventional forces, spirit master numbers, and high-end combat power, if no major external variable interferes, the original Three Kingdoms alliance will struggle to withstand the Empire's full-scale assault. Ningguang swirled her wine and added, her voice shaded with melancholy. The simulations show several possible attack routes. The most likely scenario is that the Sun Moon Empire will concentrate its superior forces and use the Tianhun Empire as the main breakthrough point. Once the Tianhun defenses are breached, the Empire can push directly into the heartland of the Star Luo Empire and create a pincer movement toward the Douling Empire. Tianhun will be the first dam to take the brunt. War, Jinshi breathed, then closed her eyes for a moment. Many people will die. She quickly regained her composure. This was a tragic but inevitable result of long-brewing grievances and continental power shifts, something human effort could only mitigate, not wholly prevent. The simulations suggested that after this painful period, the Douluo Continent might settle into a new order. Kei-Ching steered the discussion back to immediate preparations. Sea Abyss City must prepare. The Fatui, the Knight Return Army, the Jinwu Guard, and the Molten Knights all need a new round of expansion and training for the coming war. We know what Ming intends. The expansion plan can begin at once. Time is generally on our side. Changli nodded. With Sea Abyss City's current resources, we can complete the buildup and form effective forces in time. Even our present strength should be enough to ensure Aming's plan proceeds. At the mention of the Molten Knights, a small, helpless smile crossed Changli's face. There is a complication. That girl, Ying, went with Aming to that parallel world. She is the soul and heart of the Molten Knights. Without her overseeing things personally, we shouldn't expand the Knights. Her tone held a trace of exasperation at Lu Jingming's indulgence, and also a faint affection. Aming knows the Molten Knights can't do without her, and he still let her go. Fortunately, the Molten Knights are currently big enough to handle any likely engagements. Kei Qing rolled her eyes and continued, "When has he ever been otherwise? No matter how meticulous our plans, if he disapproves or takes a whim, he can change or overturn them without hesitation. Sometimes I don't know whether to call him stubborn or—" She let the sentence trail off. The meaning was clear. Lu Jingming's care for those around him had long surpassed ordinary bonds. Jinshi, Ningguang, and the others exchanged small, warm smiles. Precisely because he cherished them so completely, they had let down their guard and dedicated themselves to building this unique home, Sea Abyss City. Even knowing his heart was not exclusive, that highest priority care made acceptance easy. Deep within Sea Abyss City, in the Black Tower's private laboratory, the scene was starkly different from the Douluo Continent's mainstream soul guidance technology labs. Minimalist, cool-toned metal walls with a matte sheen enclosed the room. Oddly shaped precision instruments hummed softly as indicator lights blinked in pale blue and green, forming a quietly futuristic tableau. The air smelled faintly of specialized energy fluid and disinfectant, a scent that spoke of cleanliness and precision. At the center of the lab stood a massive cylindrical cultivation tank filled with a pale green life-sustaining liquid that shimmered like emerald. Shangguan Weier floated inside, eyes shut, her face contorted in pain. At the center of her brow, a dark purple, crack-like brand pulsed like a living wound, radiating a terrible aura of annihilation aimed at eroding existence itself. Black Tower stood with her arms crossed before the tank. Her signature, intricate dress lent her a witch-like air that contrasted with the lab's rational, high-tech environment. Her expression was composed, focused, like a connoisseur examining a strange specimen. "So this is the brand left by Huan Long?" she said, curiosity barely concealed. Her tone was clinical, almost amused, an evaluator appraising a new discovery rather than a person in peril. "The energy structure is interesting," she continued. "It's filled with pure destructive intent. It doesn't follow conventional paths of destruction. It targets the origin of life and the soul brand directly, eroding and transforming them. It's a somewhat creative form of annihilation." Her appraisal was so calm it felt cruel, as if Shangguan Weier's life were secondary to the phenomenon of the brand itself. The laboratory's automatic door slid open without a sound, and a graceful figure stepped inside. She wore a modified kyongsam in ink-washed tones. A slit in the skirt revealed elegant lines, and a veil of black gauze hung lightly over it, lending an almost ethereal quality. Her hair was coiled and pinned with an exquisite golden plum blossom hairpin. The hollowed design at her shoulder was hung with tassels, and plum blossom motifs adorned her gloves, bracelets, leg rings, and the ornaments at her waist, every detail showing a refined, singular taste. Her bearing was gentle and serene, like a Jiangnan beauty lifted from an ink painting. Yet in her deep eyes sparkled an endless curiosity and an incisive intelligence about the laws of the universe. She was Ruan Mei, Genius Club member number 81, materialized here by Lu Jingming's reality. "Herda." Ruan Mei's voice was soft as water. She moved lightly to the cultivation pod and immediately fixed her gaze on the mark on Shangguan Weier's brow. "Is this the one who needs help? The composition of this injury is very interesting." Her interesting was not the same as Herda's casual, somewhat intriguing. What lit Ruan Mei's eyes was the fervor of a pure researcher encountering a rare specimen, an instinctive urge to probe unknown life forms and anomalous states. "Ruan Mei, you're here." Herda glanced up, speaking like one colleague greeting another. "I'll leave this to you. You're better at patient, delicate work in the domain of life. I lack the patience for such intricate, embroidery-like operations." She made no secret of her disdain for tedious domains and naturally delegated the task to a more specialized genius. Ruan Mei nodded. She was used to Herda's bluntness. Extending slender, gloved fingers, she summoned threads of life energy, so fine they were almost invisible, which wreathed her fingertips. Without touching the pod, she probed the cultivator's boundary, sensing the energy fluctuations and internal rules of the destructive mark through specialized materials. Indeed, it's an atypical contamination. She closed her eyes for a moment, concentrating as if savoring a complex layered tea. It isn't crude destruction. It's more like a forceful, directional distortion, coercing ordered vitality and soul structures toward pure anti-life formations. The entity that left this mark has its own unusual interpretation of destruction. How could it not be unique? Herta scoffed. This is a masterpiece left by Huanlong. Aside from Nanook himself, very few in the universe could surpass her understanding of destruction. Ruanmei opened her eyes and, true to a researcher's nature, made a request. Before starting treatment, may I perform a more in-depth analysis of her current state? I'm very curious about the interaction mechanism between this alien energy and the indigenous life form structures. Even in rescue, Ruanmei's scientific instinct drove her to learn as much as possible. Do whatever you want, Herta said with a wave. She's not that important to me, and she's certainly not indispensable to that little guy. But, her tone took on a thin warning, don't actually make her disappear. Herta wasn't truly worried. She knew Ruanmei's domain of life expertise. Unless Ruanmei intended harm, an investigative probe would not cause irreversible damage. Herta might be brusque on the outside, but she would never watch a life vanish in her lab out of needless curiosity. Ruanmei offered a faint smile and began. Her hands moved as if plucking an invisible, priceless zither in the void realm. Countless hair-thin strands of life energy flowed from her fingertips like sentient spiritual serpents, penetrating the cultivation pod's wall with astonishing finesse. They began to peel away and neutralize the parasitic destructive mark with surgical precision. The whole process felt like an exquisite micro-performance, less a medical rescue and more a micro-sculpture of life, deconstructing an extraordinarily complex life equation about existence and negation. Occasionally she paused, murmuring to herself in soft, fascinated observations. The life forms of this world, these spirit masters, the way their life energy and soul are coupled, is unusually intimate. The spirit power system, it's inward-focused, extracting one's bloodline potential. It's akin to pathstriders or those modified by technology, but more primal, uniquely evolved. The way this destructive mark intertwines with the spirit power core, especially the so-called spirit origin, the conflict and adaptation it contains, are worth detailed recording. Those whispers revealed her essence as a Genius Club member. No matter the environment or the anomaly, she quickly immersed herself and sought the underlying patterns worthy of deep study. The treatment took time. By the moment Ruanmei finally dispelled the last stubborn remnant of the destructive aura from Shangguan Weier's soul origin, she exhaled gently. Because Lu Jingming had used a great deal of reality power to materialize Yellow Springs, Ruanmei had not been summoned at her peak strength. The delicate operation had drained her significantly. Now, however, the terrifying mark on Shangguan Weier's brow had completely vanished. Her complexion returned to normal, her breathing even, as if she had merely fallen into a deep, dreamless sleep. It's done. Ruanmei retracted the invisible threads of life. Her tone remained gentle and composed. Good efficiency. Herta checked the life sign readouts on the nearby instruments. Everything had returned to normal, and gave a nod of approval. Seems convincing. I did well persuading that little guy to summon you. Otherwise, given his, subconscious apprehension toward you, you wouldn't have gotten the chance to come to this interesting world. He's apprehensive of me, yet trusts you more. That's a bit troubling. Ruanmei's brow knitted in a faint, puzzled line. Compared to Herta, whose eccentricities were predictable, Ruanmei understood that her own methods and obsessions could unsettle people. Still, Lu Jingming was different. He was surrounded by mysteries Ruanmei wanted to explore. She considered how to build a more harmonious, deeper relationship with the young summoner. Don't worry. Herta idly toyed with another instrument. The fact that he agreed to summon you shows preliminary trust. Aren't you good at interacting with people, using that gentle, harmless facade of yours? From what I've seen, your type, intellectual, mysterious, is likely on his preference list. Ruanmei's frown eased. She was indeed skilled at communication when she chose to be, though she disliked idle socializing. But if Lu Jingming was the subject, she would invest the patience required. Her curiosity, however, already leapt ahead. Herta. She turned to the large central data screen, eyes bright with hunger. Can I get advanced access to more data on this world? Detailed research on unique life forms here, like spirits, spirit rings, and spirit beasts? For a genius devoted to the origin and evolution of life, the Douluo Continent was a secret realm of research treasure. In her original world, she had studied most known life, which had ultimately driven her to seek the aeons. Here, everything was new and fascinating. Lu Jingming's ability to bring the unreal into reality had in effect opened a doorway to a brand new domain. Herta raised an eyebrow, but was unsurprised by Ruanmei's rapid immersion. Advanced database access is granted. Browse freely. One condition. She gestured at the neat lab. Don't turn this place into something the Antimatter Legion would be proud of. With that, Herta returned to another experiment as if nothing more urgent remained. Ruanmei walked to the data screen and, fingertips dancing, brought up Sea Abyss City's compiled data on Douluo life forms. She scanned ravenously, a satisfied, eager smile touching her lips. For her, this unexpected journey had already revealed its most enticing prelude. An enormous research feast was just beginning. Outside the laboratory, the Sun Moon Empire's declaration, publicly blaming Shrek Academy and the three great empires for the bloodshedding over Mingdu's destruction, was like a live spark dropped into boiling oil. It ignited long-simmering conflicts and widespread panic across the continent. The atmosphere of war, metallic and suffocating, invaded every corner. Within the borders of the three original empires, Starluo, Tianhun, and Douling, tension and helplessness spread from top to bottom. Their highest councils had considered a preemptive strike, while the Sun Moon Empire's new capital was still stabilizing, but hard reality snuffed that plan out. First, the moral disadvantage. The Sun Moon Empire had successfully cast itself as the victim. If the three empires struck first, they would be branded aggressors, handing their enemy the moral high ground and disastrous public opinion. Second, and more important, was military prudence. The Sun Moon Empire still possessed vast, veteran spirit tool legions and impregnable border defenses. More disturbing were the two Lords of Annihilation and the remnants of the Antimatter Legion looming like a sword of Damocles. A rash attack could lead to stalemate or worse, provoking a devastating counterstrike. So the three great empires chose the most conservative, helpless option: full preparation for war and passive defense. Monarchs issued the highest mobilization orders. Border fortresses were reinforced, spirit tool barriers activated, and supplies, armaments, and rare materials flowed nonstop to the front. Young spirit masters were conscripted for intense pre-war drills. The air filled with the stench of sweat, steel, and unease. In the cities, war became the only topic in tea houses and taverns. Prices rose, especially for strategic materials. A quiet, pre-storm panic settled over the populace. All they could do was harden their defenses and wait with trepidation for the storm from the Sun Moon Empire. In stark contrast, the Sun Moon Empire moved with near-fanatical order. Emperor Shu Tianran, wielding iron resolve and the righteous cause of vengeance, quickly quelled internal unrest caused by Mingdu's destruction and the succession change. The empire's war machine spun up with unprecedented efficiency. The rebuilt New Mingdu became a non-stop political and military center. Vast resources were funneled into the military domain. Spirit tool factories ran through the night, and assembly lines churned out the latest mounted spirit tool shells and personal spirit tools. Young people enlisted en masse under stirring calls for revenge. Recruitment camps overflowed, and spy networks embedded in the three great empires fed a steady stream of intelligence on troop deployments and material shipments. Shu Tianran and his advisors understood the principle well. Sharpening the axe does not delay cutting the wood. They were not rushing an immediate eastern march. Instead, they were using this time to consolidate internally, integrate forces, and transform the grief and fury born of Mingdu's destruction into a concentrated, disciplined war potential. End of chapter. The Spirit Empire coiled like a venomous snake, licking its wounds, gathering venom, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Everyone with eyes on the continent understood that this calm was only the last, suffocating stillness before a storm. All the Spirit Empire needed was a time when its internal affairs were stable and its war preparations complete, an endpoint that even the most conservative strategists agreed would arrive within 2 years at most. 2 years is a short time in a human life, but for the three original great empires, the next 700-plus days were a final countdown that would determine the continent's future and their own fates. The clouds of war had already thickened, waiting only for the Spirit Empire, the wounded behemoth, to finish its last preparations and unleash a monstrous tidal wave. That was the despair of the imbalance in strength. The three great empires knew the Spirit Empire was preparing for war, but none dared strike first. They needed time to train troops, produce spirit tools, and shore up defenses. Even defending was draining them. Attacking would be even harder. The Spirit Empire's spirit tool technology outmatched theirs, and its fortifications were built to absorb offensive blows. In fact, the Spirit Empire wanted its enemies to attack first. Attacking consumes more than defending. With the Spirit Empire's superior spirit tools, it would be difficult for the original Empire's armies to breach its defenses. In Tianshui City of the Spirit Empire, the streets felt that tension. Lu Jingming led Gu Yuena and the others to a city gate whose ancient architecture now carried a new, strained energy. The flag above the tower had been replaced. The Heaven Do Empire's former emblem gone, replaced by a banner bearing a brilliant golden angel encircling a scepter, the new symbol of the Spirit Empire. Tianshui City, Lu Jingming murmured, scanning the stricter guards at the gate and the mixed expressions on the faces of passers-by, awed, uneasy, curious. The seeds he had planted in this era were already sprouting. Because of the variables he'd introduced and the results of the Battle Royale competition, Bibi Dong and Qian Renshui had each gained 100,000-year spirit bone and 100,000-year sacred mark. More important, the world tree, rooted in the planet's ley lines and quietly drawing and materializing negative energy, had accelerated the world's evolution. The Spirit Hall's strength and tempo had advanced significantly. About a month ago, Bibi Dong, having inherited the Rakshasa god position, could no longer hide her ambitions. She launched the long-planned spirit hunting operation. Several titled Douluo from the Spirit Hall executed a surprise strike against the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan, one of the upper three sects, intending to wipe out this formidable offensive power. Just as the Tyrant Dragon sect was on the brink of annihilation and its sect master, Thunder Douluo Yuyuan Zhen, teetered on the edge of death, a group of mysterious, exceptionally powerful, titled Douluo, suddenly intervened. They disrupted the Spirit Hall's plan, rescuing the gravely injured Yuyuan Zhen and several of his core disciples. Another strike targeted the immensely wealthy Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School and met with similar failure. Thanks to Ning Fengji's cooperation with Kunyu Pavilion, the school acquired superior spirit tool equipment, including a top-tier detection device that exposed the Spirit Hall's stealth team. Sword Douluo Chen Xin had broken through to spirit power level 97. His 7-kill sword far exceeded the Spirit Hall's expectations. With Bone Douluo Gu Rong's defense and the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda's ultimate support, the attackers suffered heavy losses and retreated. 2 consecutive critical operations had failed to destroy the Spirit Hall's foundation, but they laid bare its ambition. Bibi Dong stopped hiding, revealed her divine rank strength, and proclaimed the Spirit Hall's reorganization into the Spirit Empire, declaring herself founding empress and looking down on the world. At the same time, Qian Renshui, disguised as Crown Prince Shui Qinghe, moved to poison Emperor Shui Ye of the Heaven Do Empire, intending to take the throne and annex the empire without bloodshed. But at the decisive moment, her identity leaked. Prince Shui Xing, together with Prince Shui Beng and loyal royal officials, under the desperate protection of Thunder Douluo Yuyuan Zhen, Sword Douluo Chen Xin, Poison Douluo Dugu Bo, and those mysterious titled Douluo, broke through the encirclement and fled south, eventually joining the Star Luo Empire. Qian Renshui, now the angel god, could have restrained them, but perhaps out of respect for her old teacher Ning Fengji, or because of those who came to rescue the princes, she allowed the Heaven Do remnant to go. The central authority of the Heaven Do Empire collapsed, and the Spirit Empire quickly absorbed its territories. Cities like Tianshui changed flags and pledged allegiance. Qian Renshui's alliance with Kunyu Pavilion also mattered, because Tianshui Academy, Blazing Academy, and Shenfeng Academy had joined Kunyu Pavilion. Qian Renshui personally intervened to protect them from Bibidong, allowing those three-element academies to continue operating independently under Spirit Empire rule. That action openly challenged Bibidong's authority and deepened the fissures between the two divinities. The divine force of the Rakshasa god and the angel god nearly clashed at a high-level Spirit Empire meeting. The empire was far from unified internally. Walking Tianshui's streets, Lu Jingming felt the restless transition between old and new. Spirit Empire banners fluttered, patrols wore new armor, and the air hummed with suppressed excitement and anxiety. The continent, because of his previous interventions, had become a wild horse running in an unknown direction. The Star Luo Empire joined with the Heaven Do remnants to resist stubbornly. The Spirit Empire, ruled by two divinities, hid internal dangers, and the unknown origins and objectives of those mysterious powerhouses who had disrupted the Spirit Empire's plans only deepened the fog. In the city center stood the elegant headquarters of Kunyu Pavilion, pavilions and towers arranged in a tranquil complex that contrasted with the military chatter beyond. An invisible force field enclosed the pavilion, isolating it from external disturbances and creating a private calm. Shui Binger, Huo Wu, Feng Xiaotian, and others, having received word, waited at the main hall to greet Lu Jingming, Gu Yuena, Liu Ying, and the rest. Young Master Lu, Shui Binger stepped forward, bowing slightly. Her usual cool composure stayed, but her eyes carried a new steadiness and gratitude born of upheaval. Huo Wu, Feng Xiaoqian, and the others bowed respectfully. They all knew that if they hadn't joined Kunyu Pavilion earlier and accepted the protection Lu Jingming had arranged, they and the families and academies behind them would have been swept up by the Spirit Empire's turbulence. No need for formalities. Come inside and talk. Lu Jingming nodded, glancing over these familiar faces, now more mature. They moved into the inner hall and took seats. Shui Binger, as acting head here, reported the world-shaking changes in painstaking detail. Bibidong's bold spirit-hunting operation after becoming a divinity, the mysterious titled Douluo, who intervened during the Tyrant Dragon Sect assault, the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School's successful defense, Emperor Shui's poisoning, Qian Renshui's exposed identity, and the Heaven Do remnant's flight south under the protection of several powerful figures. Lu Jingming listened, fingers tapping an armrest. When Shui Binger mentioned those mysterious titled Douluo who had repeatedly appeared at critical moments, she frowned. Their identities are very peculiar, she said. Their spirits are extremely powerful, especially one whose spirit power is level 98. His spirit seems to be a very rare, top-tier beast spirit, shaped like a divine ox, full of fierce chi and capable of devouring energy. We've made many inquiries, but haven't pinned down their origins. To everyone in this world, Shui Binger's description was puzzling, but to Lu Jingming and Gu Yuena, it was like daylight through fog. Shaped like a divine ox, devouring energy, level 98. Gu Yuena's violet eyes flashed. She leaned close to Lu Jingming and whispered, "It's Xuan Zi. His Tao Ti divine ox spirit's traits are too obvious." A meaningful smile touched Lu Jingming's mouth. "That's right. It seems those who got here through the space-time tunnel before us are already active, one step ahead." That explained why the Spirit Hall's plans, which once seemed foolproof, had failed. Xuanzi, and likely Ma Xiao Tao and the others who traveled with him, were powerful and experienced. Placed into this Douluo Continent's past, they were a force that could reverse an otherwise one-sided situation. They were familiar with this world's history. The Shrek Academy tradition, preserved for 10,000 years, would have records of the past. Thus, the Tyrant Dragon Sect's rescue and Qian Renshui's exposed identity without Tongsan now made sense. There are subtle differences in the flow of time between the two worlds, Lu Jingming said, drawing a quick conclusion. We were only a step behind, but they arrived about a month earlier. That month was enough for them to learn the situation and choose to oppose the Spirit Empire. Gu Yuena and the others nodded, while Shui Binger and the rest looked baffled. Seeing their expressions, Lu Jingming felt it was time to reveal more. The space-time tunnel and Xuanzi's prior arrival meant the interweaving of the two worlds had begun. Continuing to hide it would only invite misjudgments. Binger, Feng, Huo Wu, he said calmly. Those unidentified titled Douluo you mentioned, we might know where they came from. Their eyes shot up, curiosity piercing confusion. Lu Jingming didn't answer directly. He asked a more fundamental question. Where do you think Kunyu Pavilion came from? Feng Xiaotian considered carefully. Brother Lu's methods are beyond ordinary. His strength, sacred mark, spirit tools. We've speculated you might come from some hidden realm or inherited an ancient legacy. Lu Jingming shook his head gently, looking almost toward the stars. Your guesses aren't wrong, but they're incomplete. We don't just come from a hidden place. He paused, then spoke the staggering truth. We come from another world, a Douluo Continent, 10,000 years after your timeline. What? Shui Binger's eyes went wide. Huo Wu stood, incredulous. Feng Xiaotian's smile froze. 10,000 years later, another world was beyond anything they'd imagined, more astonishing even than hearing that a divinity had appeared. Young Master Lu, are you saying you're not from our world? Shui Binger's voice trembled. That's right. Lu Jingming nodded. The space we occupy and yours are like two parallel rivers. For some reason we were able to cross, and those mysterious titled Douluo you met, if I'm right, are from the same future world as us. The level 98 beast spirit you described is Xuanzi. In our world, he's a top powerhouse from Shrek Academy. Gu Yana added quietly. In short, those who've been stirring things up and who saved the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect and the Heaven Du Remnant are visitors from a parallel world. The truth slammed into the hall like a cannon blast. Shui Binger and the others felt their heads buzz, overwhelmed. They needed time to digest a revelation that upended everything they thought they knew. Another world? 10,000 years later? Lu Jingming and his extraordinary companions were travelers from another world, and the powerful figures who had suddenly appeared were from other worlds as well. Wait, did you just say Shrek Academy? Huo Wu sprang to her feet, eyes wide, voice shooting up several octaves. The Shrek Academy I'm thinking of? The one with only a handful of teachers, broken down buildings, and that looked shabby, even when it competed in the Spirit Master tournament. She repeated the name as if tasting it, incredulous. And you're saying that 10,000 years from now, it's the #1 academy on the continent? Even though the All-Continent Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament had been disrupted by Lu Jingming's intervention, Huo Wu knew the name Shrek Academy. That was precisely why she found this impossible to swallow. A school so unremarkable and rundown, surviving 10,000 years and rising to the continent's peak? Feng Xiaotian and Shui Binger were just as stunned. Feng's usual easygoing smile had vanished, replaced by a hard, thoughtful expression. Ripples of emotion crossed Shui Binger's ice-blue eyes, her slim fingers clenched on the armrest. 10,000 years of legacy, the continent's top academy. Such words implied a depth of heritage, glory, and endurance that any Spirit Master family or powerhouse would covet and fear. Even the Spirit Hall, now at its height, had only existed for a few thousand years. Who could claim it would remain unshaken for 10 millennia? Yet Shrek Academy, so ordinary in their time, had apparently done it. Lu Jingming watched their faces, a faint, unreadable smile playing at the corner of his mouth. He almost wanted to tell them that, in the original timeline, their statues still stood in Shrek Academy's plaza 10,000 years later, looked up to by future students, but then recalled that in the altered timeline, those statues were probably destroyed. He suppressed the thought. It was useless to speak of what might no longer be. So that's it, Huo Wu murmured, piecing things together. Spirit Hall's elaborate spirit hunting plan kept getting sabotaged. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect was preserved, and the Heaven Du Empire managed to cling to a sliver of hope, all because Shrek Academy from a parallel world, 10,000 years in the future, intervened? The conclusion was bizarre, but it explained the anomalies perfectly. Feng Xiaotian inhaled slowly, forcing down the tumult in his chest. Calmest of the three, he focused on Lu Jingming. Brother Lu, you didn't tell us this on a whim. Why? What caused this? Lu met Feng's gaze with frank solemnity. The reason is simple. The space-time barrier between the two worlds has weakened because of certain changes. The arrival of Xuanzi and the others is only the beginning. He looked at Shui Binger, Huowu, and Feng Xiaotian, speaking steadily. The intersections between these two parallel worlds will grow more frequent and deeper. I can't keep hiding the truth from you. Doing so could leave you passive and unprepared when things change. He let them absorb the weight of that. The space-time passage in Mingdu had always been stable, he continued. Though the Sun-Moon Empire was busy with internal consolidation and war preparations, exploring the other side of the passage would be inevitable. When that happened, knowledge, technology, power, and conflicts from that parallel world would pour into their own. Since you chose to follow me and join Kunyu Pavilion, your people Lu Jingming recognize, he said. I want you to know this now so you can be mentally ready. This isn't just a crisis, it's an unprecedented opportunity. His eyes shone. In the wave that will sweep across two worlds, those who cling to old ways will be left behind. Those who see the direction, brave the change, and ride the tide will rise. He paused, then added, use the resources and experience that will come through this intersecting space-time to improve yourselves. Sea Abyss City will need strong, independent people, pillars to support a new order. I believe you have that potential. Sea Abyss City? Feng Xiaoqian echoed, testing the unfamiliar name. His shock at the parallel world was being controlled by reason. He asked quietly, is that the force you truly belong to? Exactly. Lu Jingming smiled. From the moment you joined Kunyu Pavilion, your fate's linked to Sea Abyss City. You were already its people in a sense. Today, you learned its name. Shui Binger was the first among them to steady herself completely. The ripples in her eyes faded, replaced by the clear, decisive intelligence she was known for. She had been trained in Elysia's private guidance. Her strength and vision had both expanded. She nodded, voice cool and confident. I understand, young Master Lu. If Sea Abyss City protects us and gives us resources, we will do our best to justify that trust and continue our cultivation. Her assessment was quick and sharp. In the coming upheaval, with divine-ranked powers entering the fray, academies and families would be tossed like small boats in a storm. Yet reality had already shown the advantage of being under Lu Jingming's protection. Even Qian Renshui, a divinity, showed him deference. Heavenly Water City had changed hands, yet Heavenly Water Academy and the Shui family retained their position. That silent proof settled Shui Binger's doubts. Following Lu Jingming was not only wise, it was the route to a broader world. Huowu and Feng Xiaoqian exchanged looks and found the same resolve reflected there. Huowu might be fiery, but she wasn't foolish. When presented with obvious benefits and a clear path forward, she knew how to choose. Feng, ever perceptive, understood instantly that aligning with someone who could cross space-time and make a divinity wary was a rare opportunity. Brother Lu, rest assured, we will strive. The two spoke solemnly and almost in unison. In that moment, they were no longer merely talented students or the future hope of their families. They had become members of Sea Abyss City, bound to Lu Jingming's cause. He nodded, satisfied. Troubled times breed heroes, and Lu could offer a stage far wider than anyone here imagined. He had brought them under his wing, given them resources and protection, and expected them to quickly grow into the pillars he needed. Very good, he said. Remember today's choice. Sea Abyss City's future depends on strength like yours, and your names will be remembered for it. No sooner had Lu explained the truth than a sacred, majestic aura swept over Heavenly Water City and pointed directly toward Kunyu Pavilion. Everyone there felt it. Guyuan arose, but Lu Jingming waved her down with a smile. No need. An old friend has come. The reception room door opened. A radiant figure stepped in, bathed in the window's light. Golden hair like a waterfall, eyes bright as stars, an aura of nobility and divinity. Qian Renshui, now the angel god. She had clearly rushed here, her divine regalia not fully tucked away. The faint pressure of her divine rank made Shui Binger and the others shiver. They all rose instinctively to bow. Qianren's gaze swept the room and landed on Lu Jingming in the main seat. Sacred light shimmered in her eyes, mixed with anticipation and joy. She had been waiting for his return, and her informants in Heavenly Water City had finally found him. Brother Lu, she said. Her voice retained a pleasant lilt, but now carried the ethereal distance of a divinity, a distance that faded when she addressed him. You've finally returned. Lu Jingming leaned back with a playful smile, not rising. 3 days apart, and one should see the world anew. Brother Shui has become the esteemed angel god. How shall I address you now? Brother Shui? Young Miss Shui? Or perhaps a title befitting your new status? He deliberately said, Brother Shui, recalling the time she'd presented as the gentle Crown Prince Shui Qinghe when they first met. A faint blush crossed Qian Renshui's cheek. Then she masked it with a hint of annoyance. No one else could joke about her past like this, or they'd have faced divine wrath. But with Lu Jingming, she felt an old ease. He was one of the few who made her drop the perfect mask the angel god required. Call me what you like, she snapped lightly, half exasperated. You've never been one for formalities. Shui Binger, Huo Wu, and Feng Xiaoqian watched in stunned silence. A divinity showing such human vulnerability in front of Lu Jingming, and the way she accepted his teasing only confirmed their decision to follow him. Lu's tone softened. All right, Sister Shui, congratulations on becoming the angel god, transcending the mortal world. Qian Renshui's face did not brighten. A shadow fell over her expression, her lips curved with bitterness and sorrow. Congratulations, she echoed, voice trembling barely perceptibly. This godhood, the price is too high. She let down the last of her divine reserve and spoke with weary sadness. To inherit the angel god's legacy, I lost too much. Her grandfather, who had loved and supported her throughout her life, had sacrificed himself to pave her path to divinity. That wound ran deep. For a divinity to fight the growing negative energy, to restrain Bibi Dong, who had become the Rakshasa god, and to stem the rising negative energy points threatening the Douluo Continent, she had had no choice but to accept godhood. Only by becoming a god could she stand against that darkness. End of this chapter. Lu Jingming's smile dimmed slightly at her words. It was true. Qian Renshui had been through a great deal. Even after inheriting the angel god position, she had lost the grandfather she adored, and her relationship with her mother had grown colder and more complicated. The angel god and the Rakshasa god were natural enemies. If not for the blood tie between Qian Renshui and Bibi Dong, they might have clashed to the death on sight. That bond, thin as it was, made every decision heavier. Inheriting divinity had not eased her burden, it had multiplied it. She did not know how to handle Bibi Dong, nor how to lead a spirit hall split into factions, some following Bibi Dong, others following her. Conflicts were brewing. Seeing her old friend, Qian Renshui briefly relaxed, but only briefly. With Lu Jingming, Shui Binger, and others present, she could not afford the intimacy of an unburdening. In public, she had to be the divinity, dignified, composed. She steadied herself and shifted her gaze from Lu Jingming to the people beside him. She knew Lu Ying and Xia Di. But when her eyes fell on Jing Liu and Gu Yuena, something inside her roiled. And then there was Lu Jingming himself. She felt the spirit power fluctuations from him like a blow. They had reached the titled Douluo level. Her heart leapt. When they first met in Heaven Do City, he had been only a spirit emperor. Only a few years had passed since then, at most. Her own rise to godhood had depended on the spirit hall's millennia of accumulation, the angel god legacy, and the 100,000-year holy mark won in the battle royale. She had stood on the shoulders of giants to become a divinity in a handful of years. Lu Jingming, however, not yet 20 by her recollection, had already broken into titled Douluo, a titled Douluo under 20. If that spread, it would silence every force and genius across the Douluo Continent. It shattered every precedent. Even more unsettling were the two women at his side. The white-haired, red-eyed woman seemed like a sheathed divine blade, all sharpness contained, yet invoking dread. A subtle, lethal sword intent radiated from her, far beyond ordinary sword Douluo, a chasm of difference. The silver-haired, purple-eyed woman carried an ethereal, unfathomable gravity, like gazing at a boundless starfield that hinted at unimaginable power. Qian Renshui, who had inherited a first-rank divinity's position as the angel god, even if her divine force had not yet fully integrated, still found herself pressed by an unspoken oppression. These two were very likely stronger than she was. How could that be? Unless they were not natives of this world, or possessed legacies rivaling, even exceeding, a divinity's. Her eyes on Lu Jingming became a complicated mixture of shock, inquiry, and disbelief. She had assumed that, as a newly minted god, She had surpassed him in personal strength. Now not only had he defied reason, he was flanked by presences that even she felt cautious around. "Brother Lu, you really are. Every time you appear, you bring surprise and shock," she murmured at last, unable to hide the turmoil. Lu Jingming saw the undisguised astonishment in her gaze and decided it was time to lay more cards on the table. He waved subtly. Shui Binger and the others silently withdrew. The reception hall cleared until only Lu Jingming, Guyena, Jingliu, Xiadi, Liu Ying, and Qian Renshui remained. Vita, who had come with them, had been given the freedom Lu Jingming promised. She was free to explore this strange world for the time being. He poured Qian Renshui a cup of tea, the movement calm and deliberate. The rising steam softened the dense aura of divinity that still lingered in the room. "The world is far larger than you or I perceive," Lu Jingming said in his steady voice as he handed her the cup. Qian Renshui accepted it, fingers warming against the porcelain. But his opening words tightened her nerves. Her golden, holy light eyes fixed on him, she waited. Lu Jingming set down the teapot. He met her gaze with a frankness that brooked no triviality. "I need to tell you the truth. I, Guyu, teacher, Shadi, Liu Ying, and even those titled Douluo who suddenly appeared and disrupted the spirit hunting operation, we are not from this world." Qian Renshui's pupils contracted. She gripped the teacup until her knuckles went pale. "Not of this world. What do you mean?" She spoke evenly, but a tremor ran beneath it. Lu Jingming rotated the teacup between his fingers, a faint half-smile on his lips. "With your God position and divine sense, scanning the continent isn't difficult. Have you truly detected no abnormalities?" His tone grew pointed. How could hidden sects and anachronistic spirit tools entirely evade a god's gaze? How could simulated universes and holy marks, and those powerful strangers who appeared from nowhere, originate here? Have you and the new empress never considered visitors from beyond this realm? Qian Renshui fell silent. She had indeed searched, sending her divine sense across the continent, and yet finding no clear source for Lu Jingming and his companions. Bibi Dong had suspected as much. Oddities had accumulated until they pointed at the most outrageous hypothesis. She inhaled and asked in a low voice, "So you come from other worlds? Other planets?" Lu Jingming shook his head slowly. He was not surprised that she grasped the notion of planets. Divinity's new Douluo star was a sphere, and even a limit Douluo could deduce the world's truth. Not in the usual sense of a different planet or alien civilization. We are from Douluo star in a parallel universe. We are still Douluo Continent, still spirit masters, but our era is 10,000 years after yours. It's a parallel Douluo continent, flowing alongside yours in the river of time, but branching from different choices at certain points. Think of it as a mirror image, a parallel space-time born of divergent history. He did not drag it out. He explained the idea of parallel worlds clearly and concisely, and sketched a future where soul guidance technology flourished and power structures altered. He stressed the connection, same origin, different flow. Qian Renshui listened, shaken. Parallel worlds, 10,000 years in the future, more incredible than any previous revelation about him. Yet Lu Jingming's anachronistic spirit tools, the unknown powerhouses around him, and the unfamiliar spirits that had suddenly appeared all found plausible explanation in his words. So, the ones who rescued the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect and helped Heaven Doe's remnants break through. Her voice had gone dry without her noticing. "Yes," Lu Jingming nodded. "They're from my world, top powerhouses of the Douluo Continent 10,000 years hence. Their leader, the owner of the Taoti spirit, is Xuanzi, a pillar of Shrek Academy, the continent's top academy in later generations. They reached this world through a space-time passage even before we arrived." Qian Renshui sank into thought. If so, her opponents were not merely the Star Luo Empire or surviving sects, they included future interlopers who knew history. That explained why her almost flawless operation had been undone at the last instant. She had hidden perfectly, poised to inherit the Heaven Doe Empire and take an empire without a fight, until an intervention from the future skewed everything. Understanding that cleared much of the bitterness that had rooted in her chest. The fault had not been in her planning. Against future people who knew the script, even the most meticulous strategy could be undone. Seeing her emotions settle, Lu Jingming spoke the purpose that had brought him here in the first place, something he had long been preparing to ask. The world is vaster than any of us have imagined. A single continent is a speck in the multiverse. Does the Spirit Empire's ambition to rule the continent not feel small against that backdrop? His gaze deepened, as if reflecting distant constellations. Two parallel spacetimes have already connected. Who can say there won't be a third, a fourth, 1,000 more? Future conflicts and opportunities will not be confined to one continent, one planet, or even one universe. I want to forge an unprecedented alliance with you and the Spirit Empire you represent. An alliance? Qian Renshui's divine light flickered. Lu Jingming's voice did not rise yet, carried the grandeur of a new horizon. Yes, an alliance that crosses worlds and aims at the sea of stars. He leaned forward, sincerity and a compelling force in his tone. My goal has never been mere gains and losses over a city or territory. I want to draw a magnificent map that spans the multiverse. The Douluo Continent before us, past and future, is only the cornerstone of that map. You, Qian Renshui, with your power and the forces you command, belong on that map as one of its brightest corners. By allying with him, she would gain more than help against immediate threats. She would gain a complete system of knowledge, advanced technologies, and nearly limitless resources from a far more developed civilization. That would accelerate the Spirit Empire's ascent and could even help her reach realms beyond a first-rank god. While other powers battled for continental dominance, her vision could already be cast beyond the mortal realm, toward the stars. When the time came to launch expeditions across realms, he hoped she would stand at his side. Qian Renshui felt her heartbeat quicken. His words unlocked a door she had never known, barred her thinking. The multiverse, an enterprise that dwarfed every Supreme Pontiff's dream of unifying the continent. The ambition was intoxicating. Paired with Lu Jingming's terrifying potential and the formidable individuals at his side, and the knowledge and resources of the future he represented, the proposal was irresistibly attractive. She looked at him. His handsome face was striking enough, but what drew her more was the ambition in him, a hunger that could devour stars, and the unwavering confidence burning in his deep red eyes. Qian Renshui knew this was a turning point that would decide both her future and that of the Spirit Empire. Should she remain entangled in the continent's conflicts or accept a grand, uncertain future that brimmed with possibility? The reception hall fell into a long silence. Only the elegant scent of tea drifted through the air. It wasn't only Qian Renshui who was stunned. The same words had struck Gu Yuena, who sat silently at her side. Ripples of surprise flashed in her amethyst eyes. As a half-incarnation of the dragon god, once consumed by vengeance and the restoration of the spirit beast's glory, she had assumed Lu Jingming's ambition would be confined to unifying the Douluo Continent, using it as a base to invade the god realm and dominate it, much like the dragon god had done. Only now did she realize she had underestimated him. How could his ambitions be contained by a single god realm? His vision reached the boundless multiverse, something even the dragon god had never imagined. One Douluo continent was clearly too small to hold him. Qian Renshui fell into a long, contemplative silence. The tea's fragrance lingered, but it could not calm the turmoil in her chest. The future Lu Jingming described was vast enough to unfold the entire starry sky before her, making her previous, once clear aims seem small. Yet beneath the shock there was not fear, but an indescribable longing. She had become a divinity, granted near immortality and great power, but she had lost her grandfather and watched her relationship with her mother collapse. As angel god, she carried a holy responsibility. As the Rakshasa god's inheritor, she stood at the apex of the Spirit Empire's might, but also at the pinnacle of loneliness and doubt. What did eternal life mean if it only brought solitude and endless, covert strife with those closest to her? Lu Jingming's vision cleared that fog. To lead the Spirit Hall, no, to lead the Spirit Empire into the multiverse was a goal grand enough to justify everything. It could temporarily soothe the pain that gnawed at her heart. If her grandfather's spirit watched from beyond, seeing the angel's faith spread across infinite worlds, would he not be comforted? More importantly, did parallel worlds imply a possibility, some sliver of time or space where her grandfather was still alive? Or, If she grew powerful enough to surpass the limits of her god position, could she even bend the rules of life and death? At the thought of such possibilities, Qian Renshui's ripples of emotion became a tide. She found direction again. She lifted her head. The confusion in her eyes gave way to resolve, and the golden divine light around her flared. Brother Lu, her voice was steady, decisive. I accept. I will form an alliance with you and help you explore this multiverse. Lu Jingming's face lit up with an honest, radiant smile that seemed to brighten the room. He reached out and, as naturally as one might greet a close friend, patted Qian Renshui's shoulder. Good, Sister Shui. Trust me, this will be the right decision. The casual contact drew several looks. Gu Yuana's amethyst eyes narrowed slightly. A faint chill flashed across her features as she crossed her arms, and a ripple of elemental energy skimmed the air. Liu Ying blinked, then took a small step forward. Xia Dai, usually unobtrusive, moved closer to Lu Jingming as well. Qian Renshui noticed the shift in atmosphere. For a moment, she was startled, then a new feeling took root. As a divinity, her mundane emotions had faded, but now she detected something in those women's reactions, something that stirred a novel, quiet pride. Another, more daring thought crept in. The angel lineage had to be preserved. Even as a divinity, she had to consider bloodline and legacy. Her grandfather had hoped the angel god's blood would continue. Who among the continent's men, she wondered, could match the qualifications of Lu Jingming? Mysterious, powerful, ambitious, and undeniably handsome. To be both an ally and the father of outstanding offspring. She felt that Lu Jingming's divine presence far exceeded her angel god position. His potential was boundless. A union with him would secure not only the angel legacy, but also a powerful alliance for the Spirit Empire's future. She felt admiration and perhaps something closer toward Lu Jingming. But divinities had all the time in the world. There was no need to rush. For now, the priority was to stabilize the alliance, respond to the shifting situation at home, and prepare for the journey into the multiverse. The rest could wait. A faint, sovereign smile curved Qian Renshui's lips. She lifted her teacup like a toast. Then, Brother Lu, for our alliance, for a broader future. For the future, Lu Jingming echoed, raising his cup. He noticed Gu Yuana, Liu Ying, and Xia Di's reactions, but not the deeper seed of intention that had sprouted in Qian Renshui's heart. Night settled over Tianshui City, a silver veil of moonlight and stars. Qian Renshui did not linger. As a true power in the Spirit Empire, she had to be wary of her increasingly erratic mother, Bibi Dong. The Rakshasa god's influence grew darker by the day. Qian Renshui had to make sure the Spirit Empire did not spiral into ruin under Bibi Dong's command. Bearing the newly forged alliance and a head full of plans, she transformed into a streak of light and vanished into the night. On the highest terrace of Kunyu Pavilion, the night wind stirred the scent of distant grass. Gu Yuana stood alone by the railing, silver hair gleaming in moonlight, her amethyst eyes fixed on the star-strewn sky. Her profile, cool and noble, held an emotion she had never admitted to herself. Soft footsteps approached. Lu Jingming came to stand beside her, gazing up at the brilliant firmament. "Where are Liu Ying and Xia Di?" he asked. "Why are you here alone with me?" Gu Yuana did not turn. Her voice was cool, with a thread of bitterness she had not fully acknowledged. Lu Jingming chuckled, gentle. "They have their own things to attend to. The moonlight is beautiful, but for one like you, it can feel lonely." She finally turned. The moon carved her face in sharp, unattainable lines, divine, transformed from the delicate Guyo into Gu Yuana. Her amethyst eyes held a question. "You don't seem surprised by what I've become." Lu Jingming looked at her with a frank, penetrating gaze. "Surprised? Why would I be? Gu Yue is you. Gu Yuana is you. No matter the change in appearance, your soul is the same. The strands of our acquaintance don't change. To me, you've always been someone I can trust completely." His words were steady and sincere, like the moonlight around them. The unease that had curled in Gu Yuana's chest smoothed, warmed, but a deeper worry remained, one she could not shed as beast spirit co-lord. "Then, what about the future of the spirit beasts?" she asked softly. "In a world dominated by humans, their space is shrinking. Hatred and slaughter continue. Even if I regain my strength, can that tide really be turned?" Her voice carried fatigue and weight. Worse than the practical problem was the fear that the human spirit-beast conflict would one day drive a wedge between her and Lu Jingming. He listened, his expression turning serious. He stepped closer. "Guye," he said, "I've thought about that. If we stay confined to the Douluo Continent, those grievances may be hard to erase, but my goal has never been limited to this place." He gestured at the starry sky with calm confidence. "I'll find a more suitable world for spirit beasts, vast, rich in resources, far from human interference, and from there we'll work to promote coexistence. When Sea Abyss City's influence reaches the stars, when we have the authority to mediate between worlds and civilizations, fostering peace between humans and spirit beasts won't be impossible." He looked into her amethyst eyes, intensity burning. "So whatever you fear, the future you dread, will not come to pass. As long as I'm here, I won't let it happen." His words struck Guyuena like thunder. He didn't just understand her dilemma. He had already taken it on and planned a way out she hadn't dared imagine. A future beyond this continent, toward the stars, one that embraced all her identities and duties, surged warmth through the cold barriers she had built over the years. You actually thought of all that," she whispered, incredulous. Lu Jingming's smile softened. He reached out and brushed a loose strand of silver hair from her cheek, as if tending something precious. His voice dropped, steady and comforting. "You're not good at hiding emotion. I noticed. I know what you fear." He moved even closer until their eyes were nearly touching, his tone resolute, leaving no room for doubt. "Listen to me and remember it. Guyo, whatever you worry about will never happen. Whether you are Guyu or Guyuena, whether you bear the title of Beast Spirit Co-Lord or anything else, you and I will not be enemies. I will walk your path with you. I will share your burdens. Any force that tries to separate us, I will crush." Those words melted something in Guyuena. Warmth spread through her limbs, shattering the emotional armor she had always worn. Her hand flew to her chest, feeling her pulse race. Color rose to her cheeks like twin blossoms. The ice in her amethyst eyes thawed, leaving only shimmering emotion. She could no longer suppress where her heart was leading. Under the witness of the stars and the moon, Guyuena acted on impulse and feeling. She rose on tiptoe, lashes fluttering like butterfly wings, and soft, reverent, determined, pressed her cool, gentle lips to Lu Jingming's warm ones. The kiss crossed racial boundaries and past stances. It was born purely from a meeting of souls. In that moment, she forgot the burdens of the beast spirit co-lord and the gulf between human and spirit beast. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that single, earnest embrace. End of this chapter. Lu Jingming understood Guyuena the moment she crept forward on tiptoe. A knowing, gentle smile flickered in his eyes. Without hesitation, he slipped his arms around her slender waist, pulling her close until she fit perfectly against him, and returned the kiss, warm, steady, answering the trust, dependence, and fledgling love in it. Moonlight poured down like liquid silver, bathing them and sketching a soft, sacred halo around their joined forms. The night wind seemed to tread more lightly, as if not to disturb this small tableau frozen in time. Their silhouettes, tangled on the terrace, were the most moving sight in the quiet night. But that scene did not escape every eye. Hidden in the shadow of a nearby colonnade, Lu Ying stood perfectly still, her heterochromatic eyes, one blue, one pink, fixed unblinkingly on the lovers. She said nothing, only her fists clenched until her knuckles blanched. Her face, usually so earnest and fiery, showed little outward expression, but the slight press of her lips and the stubborn focus in her gaze betrayed the turmoil under her calm. Higher up, on an upturned eave, Xiadi sat like a solitary orchid, a book in her hands. Moonlight traced her serene profile, giving her a quiet radiance. Her usual gentle, slightly dreamy smile remained, but up close it seemed a few shades paler. In the depths of her eyes, a faint, almost imperceptible complexity flickered before she smothered it with practiced composure and returned to her gentle stillness. The moon kept pouring its light. The wind still sighed among the treetops. But beneath the surface of that peaceful night, the ripple of feeling set loose by a single kiss quietly spread. The tenderness lingering under the moonlight clung to their fingertips as they walked away, warming them like a fine wine. Lu Jingming held Guyuena's cool, soft hand and led her down the deserted corridor toward his private chambers. His palm was warm and steady, wordlessly conveying a clear expectation amid the silence. Guyuena followed beside him, silver hair shimmering dimly under the corridor lamps. She lowered her lashes, long, thick, like butterfly wings, subtly hiding the shyness that fluttered in her purple eyes. She could feel the intensity of the man beside her, and she understood perfectly the meaning behind his pull. Her heart was like a pond disturbed by a thrown stone. Panic rippled out, but beneath it lay an unexpected calm. She did not try to pull away. Instead, her fingers curled a little tighter around his, signaling assent. Those heavy thoughts of race, duty, and the future were pushed aside for the moment. She wanted only to sink into this pure, tremulous feeling and follow her heart into an unfamiliar, tempting realm. But when Lu Jingming reached up to push open the carved wooden door, the sight inside hit them like a bucket of cold water and froze the romance in an instant. Lu Ying sat upright in a pear-blossom wood armchair, spine impossibly straight, her blue and pink eyes brilliant in the lamplight with a stubborn earnestness. Near the window, Xia De moved with composed grace, pouring tea. The lingering scent filled the room. She glanced up at the sound of the door and offered her usual all-encompassing smile. Lu Jingming blinked, then smiled helplessly and amused. He knew exactly what these two meant. Guyuena paused, the lingering flush in her cheeks easing. Composed once more, she regarded the scene with a faint, almost playful glint in her purple eyes. Lu Ying was first to rise, swift and decisive. She stepped forward until she stood before him, looked up with a resolute expression, and spoke plainly, with a raw urgency he could not miss. "Aming, I've fallen behind." Her voice carried both unwillingness and haste. "I want to be with you too." Xiadi set down the white jade teapot and approached on light steps. Her voice was soft as a spring, but contained the same firm resolve. "Aming, this time." She paused, meeting his eyes. "I won't step back again." Their words were small but heavy. Lu Jingming looked at the two girls, both connected to him in deep ways, now standing together, and then down at Guyuena's composed, almost mischievous face. He felt a sour, sweet ache of exasperation and amusement. With a hand to his temple and a teasing gleam in his eye, he stretched the moment out. "Oh, together, huh? If that's what you want, you have to keep your word. No regrets later." The effect was immediate. Lu Ying's and Xia Dai's faces erupted into crimson, their courage collapsing as fast as it had come. The boldness stoked by the moonlit scene deflated under his ambiguous teasing, leaving nothing but embarrassment. Up close, they looked as if they had acted on impulse. Guyuena's ears heated. She couldn't help but jab a slender finger into the soft of his waist, giving it a precise twist, and shot him a shy, reproachful glare, silent punishment for his loose tongue. All right, she said, amused. "I was only joking." Lu Jingming grinned and quickly backpedaled. The playful expression vanished, replaced by warmth and seriousness. "Tonight, let's keep clear heads and cultivate together. Lu Ying, Shadi, you two need to intensify your comprehension. Try to condense your second spirit core as soon as possible and break through the bottleneck to become titled Douluo. The road ahead is long. Strength is the foundation." He knew his limits. Even given their intimacy, he wasn't about to treat the girl's first experience as something casual. For a woman, a first time was special. It deserved solemnity, one-on-one respect. A high-intensity, all-at-once approach would have been too much. What he and Guyuena had shared earlier felt like a natural progression of feelings. He had only gone along with it. Lu Ying and Xia Di's interruption didn't anger him. How could he not understand their motives? And having all four of them in the same room that night, even under the pretext of cultivation, was some step forward. Closer bonds, quieter intimacies, a small move toward his distant dream of them all sleeping under one blanket. The smile in his eyes betrayed the thought. Star Luo Empire, Imperial Council Hall. The hall itself was majestic. High ceilings, carved beams, painted rafters, but tonight it felt as if a storm hovered above. This gathering was unprecedented in 10,000 years, compressing almost every core force on the Douluo Continent that opposed the Spirit Empire into one place. The air seemed thicker. Every breath felt weighted. Representatives sat in separate blocks, their gazes running across the room with scrutiny, wariness, and the awkward solidarity forged by a shared enemy. On the side led by Emperor Dai Yutian flowed imperial might. Beside him sat Dai Weishi, Zhu Zhuyun, and the increasingly steady, reserved Dai Mubai, along with the cold, ethereal Juju King. Nearby, the remnants of the Heaven Empire, Prince Shuixing and Imperial Prince Shuibeng, sat with the stubborn flame of restoration in their eyes despite their losses. Sect Master Ning Fengji of the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School maintained his calm, jade-like composure that concealed immeasurable wisdom. Sword Douluo Chenxin and Bone Douluo Gu Rong stood like twin sentinels, restrained but ready to erupt. Poison Douluo Dugu Bo lounged as if indifferent, but beneath half-closed lids his gaze swept the hall like a venomous snake. The sect master of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan, Thunder Douluo Yuanzhen, though pale from unhealed wounds, remained upright and unbowed. Soaring Sky, Douluo Tongxiao of the Clear Sky sect sat silent and heavy, an aura that could quell restlessness, himself the continent's pillar. The core members of Shrek Academy, Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang, Liu Erlong, and Flender, were present. Behind them, the young prodigies, Tong San, Xiao Wu, Ning Rongrong, Oscar, Ma Hongjun, sat straighter than before, the boyish innocence replaced by solemn duty. Opposite that formidable line sat another group, small but impossible to ignore. Xuanzi, Ma Xiaotao, Han Ruoruo, Shu Sanqi, the mysterious figures who had skulked into the Spirit Empire's plan and ruined it. Quiet as they were, their presence pressed on the room. Xuanzi's murky eyes opened and shut now and then, hinting at depths few could fathom. The spirit power around him hummed like a hidden current, one that hinted at the strength of a 98th rank peak Douluo, unfathomable beneath placid waters. The heat that lingered around Ma Xiaotao carried the nobility and dominance of the phoenix, pure and potent. It stirred even Ma Hongjun, who himself bore the evil fire phoenix spirit with a bloodline affinity. But what made even these peak powers uneasy were two absent names, Jan and Aglaya. Everyone knew that if those two had not released their aura at the crucial moment, an aura that even made the newly ascended angel god Qian Renshui hesitate, the delicate transfer of the Heaven Do Empire's core forces into Star Luo's protection would have been impossible. Jean and Aglaya were the invisible trump cards, the balance against divine-level threats, the foundation on which the alliance could now stand. Dai Yutian, as host and emperor, felt the fragility of this temporary union. He drew a deep breath, and his measured, powerful voice broke the suffocating silence. Sect masters, seniors, allies. His gaze swept the hall like a torch before settling on Xuanzi. He spoke plainly and gravely. Today, we have set aside old grievances and prejudices to meet here because we face the same unprecedented disaster, the Spirit Empire, and the two powerhouses among them who have ascended to godhood. He let the weight of two divine presences settle over the assembly before continuing. Bibi Dong and Qian Renshui, either one of them alone has the power to upend the balance of this continent. Together, their momentum is overwhelming. Before such divine might, any single force would be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The situation is clear. Unite, and there may be a chance to survive. Divide, and certain destruction follows. This concerns our existence and the future of the continent. Having laid bare the necessity of an alliance, he shifted his tone to something sharper and more exacting, targeting the heart of their mistrust. An alliance depends on sincerity. Its foundation is trust. Before we discuss plans to oppose a great enemy, some things must be clarified. He fixed Xuanzi with his gaze. Senior Xuanzi and the companions you have brought, your identities, your purpose, and the two seniors who have not yet shown themselves. These matters determine whether the alliance we forge will be strong and whether we can safely trust one another's backs. For the trust we are about to place in each other, I ask for your honest disclosure. At once every eye in the hall, curious, suspicious, grateful, wary, turned to the unassuming, somewhat disheveled old man. Xuanzi had already rescued Thunder Douluo, exposed Qian Renshui's shocking deception, and escorted the Heaven Do core forces to safety. Yet his origins and motives remained a veiled blade, powerful, inscrutable, and instinctively mistrusted. This unknown was the first and most crucial hurdle the fragile alliance would have to clear. Without clarity about Xuanzi and his group's origins and intentions, the others could not fully place their trust in them. End of chapter. Xuanzi hefted the wine gourd at his hip, tipped his head back, and swallowed a long draught. The sharp liquor slid down his throat like the only thing that could stem the churn of emotions within him. His cloudy eyes swept slowly over the faces in the hall, faces both familiar and strange. When they lingered on young men like Tang San, Dai Mubai, and Ma Hongjun, names that loomed large in the history he knew, an expression of complex, almost wordless feeling passed across them. He set the gourd down, and voice ringing through the hall, yet edged with the exhaustion of one who had crossed time itself, said, "I am Xuanzi, titled Douluo Tauti. I am not from this world. I come from 10,000 years hence, a different Douluo Continent whose broad course mirrors yours, but whose details have long since split away." He hesitated, choosing how to explain the inconceivable to a room of ancient powers. In our age, Shrek Academy has stood for 10,000 years, acknowledged as the foremost academy on the continent. The clear sky hammer of the clear sky sect still shakes the directions. The seven treasure glazed tile pagoda still shines brightly. The thunder of the blue lightning tyrant dragon still rends the clouds. He nodded toward Ma Xiaotao, Han Ruoruo, and the others standing beside him. These are the contemporary elites of our Shrek Academy. 10,000 years from now. Another world. Shrek Academy becomes the foremost on the continent. Even these seasoned masters, used to upheavals that would unsettle lesser men, were shaken. Outbursts of disbelief spilled from many throats. Yu Xiaogong shot upright, his whole body trembling with the violent collision of thought and feeling, voice hoarse as he stammered, "Parallel world. That's in my theoretical work. How can this be?" He searched for a place to fit this astonishing fact into the neat edifice of his lifelong research and found his theories shockingly inadequate. Tang San's brow tightened. His purple demon eye flickered to life and studied Xuanzi and the newcomers with clinical attention. Of all of them, Tang San was the first to accept the idea of visitors from another world. After all, his own soul came from elsewhere. That the travelers came from a future parallel world only deepened the implications. Xuanzi ignored the ripples of astonishment and continued in a low, steady voice. "We did not come by choice. A massive accident dragged us through a spatio-temporal passage into this world. We intervened because, in the history we know, Spirit Hall's so-called spirit hunting operation led to the tragic annihilation of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect and devastating harm to the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School, with countless lives lost. If we had the ability to stop that from happening here, we could not stand aside." His gaze settled on the pale-faced Yuanzhen and the solemn Ningfengji. Saving the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect and helping the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School resist their ambush were our motives. Yuanzhen, still bearing his wounds, cupped his fists and spoke in a voice thin but sincere. "Senior Xuanzi, and all of you righteous ones, your aid in saving my sect from destruction, Yuanzhen and the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan will remember it forever." Ning Fengji inclined his head with grave manners. "This kindness, the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School will engrave on its heart." At that, Ma Hongjun could no longer contain himself. He leapt up, pointing with a trembling finger at Ma Xiaotao, who stood quietly to the side. The round, chubby man's face was a riot of surprise, excitement, and a sudden, fierce kinship. Wait, you're called Ma Xiaotao? Your spirit is a phoenix? This feeling, so like my evil fire phoenix, and yet different. Purer, stronger, without that restless edge. Senior Xuanzi said you're Shrek Academy students from 10,000 years in the future. Are you really? He stared wide-eyed. The thought that made his heart race was both absurd and irresistible, a bloodline thrill he could not hold back. Ma Xiaotao rose with effortless poise. Tall and exquisitely formed, she faced this ancestor named in her family's legacy with a gentle smile. She did not fully release her spirit, but a vivid crimson phoenix chi flowed around her, pure and noble as sanctified flame. That sacred aura struck a chord in Ma Hongjun's evil fire phoenix. Crimson flames leapt up around him, and the two phoenix powers, same origin, different temper, answered each other in the great hall. Although Ma Hongjun's evil fire had long been tempered by the immortal herb, he had not reached Ma Xiaotao's level. Her spirit was the true fire phoenix, evolved beyond his original flame. "That's right," Ma Xiaotao said, her voice clear and edged with emotion. "According to the family legacy, my bloodline traces to the first-generation evil fire phoenix spirit master. Ancestor Ma Hongjun, my spirit has evolved, shedding the evil flame's troubles to become a true fire phoenix. You're really my descendant? Ma Hongjun gaped, finger pointed at himself as if to confirm the absurdity. He gaped at the composed woman before him, so much more refined than he, and then on a pinch from Oscar, yelped like a child. The sudden pain jolted him back. He scratched his head, an idiot grin breaking across his face, pride and bashfulness tangled together. Xiao Wu and Ning Rongrong huddled close, whispering in wonder. Dai Mubai tore his gaze away from the family drama and returned it to Xuanzi. As a Star Luo imperial prince, he cared foremost for the looming crisis. Senior Xuanzi, he asked in a low voice, since you're from the future, your understanding of Spirit Hall, or rather, the Spirit Empire, must be far deeper than ours. What will they do next? How do we deal with two divine rank powerhouses? Is there any way to break this impasse? Xuanzi's face darkened. He shook his head slowly. That is the hardest and most troubling part. The history we know and what is unfolding here have diverged so radically that in many respects they are unrecognizable. His eyes swept the hall and settled on Tang San, whose brow knit tighter. Xuanzi's voice carried a reluctant pain. In the timeline we remember, there was no massive outbreak of impurity points at this time. Qian Renshui and Bibi Dong could not both have attained god status in this era, and Tang Hao of the Clear Sky sect, he should not have fallen now. Father, Tang San's face instantly drained. He seized the armrest so hard his knuckles blanched. Grief and towering rage slammed into him, raw and immediate. Xiao Wu trembled. She gripped his hand and sat close, offering silent support. Tang Xiao, too, tightened his hold on his armrest until the wood cracked. Though Tang Hao had once enraged the previous Clear Sky sect master, his father, Tang Xiao, had never truly blamed him. He had believed Tang Hao the victim of Spirit Hall's machinations. But to protect the sect, he had once expelled Tang Hao to placate Spirit Hall. Learning of Tang Hao's death had cut Tang Xiao to the bone. Later, when the Spirit Empire rose, he had been the one to reopen the sect and ally with the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon and the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School against the Spirit Empire, because he understood all too well that a unified Spirit Empire would not spare the Clear Sky sect. Silence settled heavy over the hall. Then Ning Fengji's calm, knowing voice broke it. As for why history has changed so drastically, Fengji has a guess. His astute gaze swept the room and stopped on Xuanzi and the newcomers. Have any of you heard of the Kunyu Pavilion? Xuanzi's expression shifted. Kunyu Pavilion? We don't just know of it. In our world, when Kunyu Pavilion was first founded, Shrek Academy played a major role. Ning Fengji nodded, his hunch confirmed. He sighed. As I thought, Kunyu Pavilion's origins are mysterious. The simulated universes they control, spirit tools that surpass their era, the miraculous stigmata, these are beyond current comprehension. I suspected they'd come by an ancient ruin's legacy, but in light of a parallel world possibility, that notion now seems too small. Your sense is accurate, Xuanzi said quietly. Kunyu Pavilion is, 99% likely, a subordinate organization of Sea Abyss City, a power from our world. The situation is worse than we feared. We were sucked through a passage by accident. They may possess a method to travel between parallel worlds, and they may well have been plotting in this world for a long time. The thought that a force could cross and manipulate parallel worlds chilled everyone. Sword Douluo Chenshin spoke up, his gaze slicing like a blade. You come from the same world as each other. Do you know Snow Moon Douluo and Lu Jingming? Snow Moon Douluo? Lu Jingming? Hanroro gasped and shot looks at Ma Xiaotao and the others. Shock and an as-expected recognition flared in their eyes. Ning Fengji, catching the surge, pressed on. Xuanzi's face went ashen. How could he not know? In the Stardew Great Forest, he had first-hand encountered Snow Moon Douluo's unparalleled sword Dao. The single sword had grievously wounded him and required long convalescence to recover. Ma Xiaotao drew a breath and, speaking for the group, explained, Snow Moon Douluo is one of the peak powerhouses of our era, a level 99 limit Douluo. Her sword Dao has reached the transcendent realm. She is effectively a sword god. Her tone grew heavier. Lu Jingming is regarded as the top talent of our younger generation. He is the lord of Sea Abyss City, and in truth, the power behind Kunyu Pavilion. Those identities, Lord of Sea Abyss City, the hand behind Kunyu Pavilion, struck the imperial palace like lightning. Threads of the mystery began to knit together. A colossal, cross-world force with schemes that spanned parallel realities, a power whose shadow outstretched even the Spirit Empire. Sword Douluo Chenshin muttered, frowning. Level 99. Huh? A level 99 titled Douluo was the absolute pinnacle of human power, terrifying. But as a swordsman, Chenshin felt something deeper. Snowmoon Douluo's sword Dao could not be contained by a number alone. He had faced that Dao in a simulated universe. It had felt otherworldly. He could not prove it yet, so he tucked the doubt away. Then Xuanzi began to tell the history of their world. His voice, worn by time and distance, carried like a strange wind through the hall, recounting an epic that read like myth. How Tang San endured the sea god's 9 trials and inherited the sea god position, then also cultivated the Asura god position, becoming 2 gods in one. How Xiao Wu became his sheath, sharing the Asura god position with him in life and death. How Daimubai and Juju King attained the war god and speed god positions. How Oscar and Ning Rongrong received legacies as food god and 9-colored goddess. How Ma Hongjun shed his evil flame and rose as the phoenix god. Finally, at Jialing Pass, the battle that decided the continent's fate, Tang San, wielding 2 god positions, fought a cataclysmic 3-god duel with Bibi Dong, who had become the Rakshasa god, and Qian Renshui, who had become the angel god, and emerged victorious, securing 10,000 years of peace. Xuanzi left out certain crucial secrets, but even this stripped version of their world's saga struck the hall into perfect silence, so complete that one could have heard a pin drop. Become a god, Daimubai muttered under his breath. He and Juju King exchanged a look, shock plain on both their faces, and beneath it a dangerous, inexpressible excitement sparked by the opportunity that could overturn heaven itself. The immortal herb had already elevated their talents beyond what they once were, but never had they dared dream of the legendary, unreachable god position. Now that possibility hung before them like a blazing star. Oscar stood there with his mouth open, a sausage nearly slipping from his hand. A food god? A spirit master of a food system could actually touch a god position? The idea pummeled him with disbelief and wild hope. Ning Rongrong covered her mouth with a slender hand, her eyes glittering with an otherworldly light. 9-colored goddess, how perfectly that title matched her 9 treasure-glazed tile pagoda. Mahongjun rubbed his hands together with glee, his round face flushed with excitement. Phoenix god, how imposing, how suited to his future heroic image. Tang San gripped Xiao Wu's hand so hard his knuckles whitened. Sea god, Asura god. The names pointed to paths of vengeance and overwhelming strength. His father Tang Hao's dying orders and the blood feud that had been seared into his heart surged up again. He already knew the truths of the past and the deep hatred between his family and Spirit Hall. He hungered for power, to raze Spirit Hall to the ground, to return to that desecrated place and wipe out the Black Shadi who had killed his father. Xiao Wu felt the determination and pain rising in him, leaning closer to silently pledge her unshakable support. But not everyone reacted with simple joy. Dai Weishi, first crown prince of the Star Luo Empire, and his fiancée Juju Yun went pale when they heard the history. Although Xuanzi had not spelled out the specifics of the imperial succession, the fact that Dai Mubai and Juju King could both become gods made it clear. In the parallel history, they had been the losers of a brutal succession war in the Star Luo imperial family. Under the iron laws of Star Luo, failures often had no future. They would rise to godhood, eternal and radiant. What about Ju Yun? What about Dai Weishi himself? In the original timeline, losing the throne could well have meant losing their lives. Dai Weishi's hands tightened into fists until his nails bit into his palms. He had been cold to Dai Mubai before, and had pressured him at times. Yet beneath imperial pride, there had been a thread of brotherly affection. He had even offered support in cultivation. Juju knew how often she had meant to kill Juju Qing, and how many times she had held back. Otherwise, how could Juju King have repeatedly escaped, finally making it through the perilous Stardew Great Forest to Shrek Academy? Unwillingness and humiliation rose in Dai Weishi like bile. He refused to accept that fate. If history could be changed and god positions inherited, why not him? He was the rightful crown prince. His talent, his heart, his political acumen, how were they inferior to Dai Mubai's? The desire to seize this chance and rewrite his destiny flared into a wildfire in his chest. He looked at Dai Mubai, trying to mask it, but a flash of cold decisiveness and an almost invisible envy crossed his eyes. Dai Yutian, seated on the imperial throne and watching everything, noticed it, but his expression remained unreadable. The Star Luo imperial family had always lived by a harsh rule of succession. The victor rules. The loser is ostracized. Dai Weishi had the courage to contend, and the emperor was pleased to see it. Besides, this was the history of a parallel world. Who could say this world would follow the same path? Shui Beng, the Heaven Do crowned prince, felt his own emotions surge. He had once been a fallen prince, his kingdom shattered, his family dispersed, fleeing south with the faintest hope of restoration. Xuanzi's words had rekindled that tiny spark. If Tang San and the others could become gods and defeat the invincible spirit empire, could he not also grasp a portion of that once-in-a-millennium feast as a legitimate scion of Heaven Do? Even if he himself could not attain a god position, clinging to these future divinities might make the restoration of his country possible. His eyes flashed with feverish calculation as he began to plot how to bind his interests to Tang San and the others. Around the hall, Ning Fengji, master of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, and the sword Douluo Chenxin and bone Douluo Gurong exchanged glances. The school's future close relationship with a food god and the 9-colored goddess would be a tremendous boon, consolidating their status in the years to come. But Xuanzi's revelation had also implied heavy losses in that catastrophic timeline. Now that they knew, they must marshal every resource to prevent the same tragedy. Ensuring Ningrongrong's successful inheritance of the 9-colored goddess position became the school's central strategy, not merely a family hope, but a key to securing a dominant place in whatever new order arose. Oscar's prospects earned a flicker of interest from Ning Fengji. His talent and heart were excellent, and his relationship with Rongrong was not casual. He could be supported, but core resources would have to tilt toward Rongrong. Grandmaster Yu Shaogang was torn between immense pride and deep unease. His disciples, his personally nurtured students, would become double gods in the future. All his other pupils would become gods as well. This would be the ultimate vindication of his theories. But why, Yu wondered, would Xuanzi reveal such top-secret information about god positions in a public setting instead of confiding privately? What was his purpose in laying such a temptation bare before so many? Who stood behind Xuanzi, and what were their intentions? The Shrek people who had arrived from the parallel world were hardly more composed. Han Ruoro watched Xuanzi as he poured himself wine, thinking through the implications. They had already concluded this world was not their true past, but a parallel one, the most obvious clue being the absence of the 10 vicious beasts they knew. Yet this world truly had god positions. The angel god and Rakshasa god were tangible evidence. If Tang San and his counterparts could become divine through those trials, why couldn't they? Tang San and the others were undeniably talented, but Ma Hongjin's talent wasn't necessarily greater than Ma Xiaotao's, who had already evolved into a true phoenix in their world. Han Ruoro, Shu Sanqi, and the others were no weaker than Oscar, Ning Rongrong, and their peers. Elder Xuan himself had reached the 98th realm of titled Douluo. If god positions could be inherited, why should the opportunity automatically go to ancestors recorded 10,000 years ago rather than to the living fighters who had every right to it? Han Ruoro refused to believe Elder Xuan would surrender this once-in-a-lifetime chance simply because those ahead of them were their ancestors on a scroll. A god position would grant eternal life and power. Returning with that power would lift Shrek Academy's prestige to an unprecedented height, able to meet any crisis, finding a way home, resisting the Sun Moon Empire, standing up to the Spirit Empire. Power in the shape of a god position was the only solution they could see. They were not alone in that thinking. Ma Xiaotao, Shu Sanqi, and the others shared similar glances. If Elder Xuan intended only to support the first-generation Shrek 7 Devils with their group's strength, they could easily have taken Tang San and a trusted few to Sea God Island in secret. Why present the opportunity openly here, under everyone's eyes, inviting covetousness? Tang Xiao, sect master of the Clear Sky School, felt elation bloom in his heart. Tang San, bloodkin of his brother Tang Hao, might have the potential for a double god position. If Tang San ascended, the Clear Sky sect would not only be able to take vengeance, but could cement its position as the supreme sect in the world, free from the Spirit Empire's shadow. He already pictured marshaling the sect's full strength to help Tang San ascend and exact revenge for those killed by Spirit Hall. Xuanzi's words had stirred more than resolve to fight the enemy. They ignited ambition, calculation, and an aching hunger for the supreme god position. Beneath the outward cooperation, human desires simmered and leapt. When the meeting in the Imperial Hall finally ended, the factions dispersed with different intentions, some thrilled by the ethereal chance of godhood, some anxious over the Spirit Empire's double divine threat, others already scheming. The news Xuanzi had spread would ripple far beyond that chamber. Like a giant stone thrown into a still lake, it set the fates of countless people and forces shifting in quiet, unpredictable ways. At the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School's temporary residence in Star Luo City, in a secluded courtyard of elegant serenity, Ning Fengji sat urgently conferring with Sword Douluo Chen Xin, Bone Douluo Gu Rong, and his cherished daughter, Ning Rongrong. So much new information had been revealed that they needed time to absorb it and devise strategies. Most crucially, how to secure Ning Rongrong's 9-colored goddess-god position. As they spoke, soft and measured footsteps approached from outside. The disciple guarding the gate did not stop the newcomers. He recognized them as the two young women who had caught Ning Fengji's attention at the meeting, quietly moving among Xuanzi's group from the parallel world, individuals with unmistakable and unique charisma. The woman in front wore an elegant, luxurious gown. Her posture was as straight and graceful as an orchid. Her face was beautiful beyond comparison, but most striking were her eyes, clear, translucent, and unmistakably akin to Ning Fengji's. They also flashed the same Seven Treasure Glazed tile brilliance as Ning Rongrong's. Yet her bearing was more composed, wiser, and carried an innate nobility beyond her years. Beside her walked a tall, agile young woman with red hair and sharp eyes, the sort of presence that radiated a fiery, loyal bravery, steps firm and protective, like a devoted personal guard. Ning Fengji regarded them with gentle eyes, his mind already forming suspicions at the sight of the girl, whose temperament mirrored his own, and whose gaze carried that familiar light. "Young ladies, what brings you here at this hour?" he asked, his voice calm and soothing, bearing the authority of a sect master. The leading young woman took a deep breath, steadying herself, and stepped forward. She performed an ancient, extremely formal sect salute, an etiquette so precise that Ning Fengji and the two Douluo's faces altered almost imperceptibly. That ritual was an old core custom of the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School. Its subtleties could only be known by direct descendants. Outsiders could not imitate it with such perfect angles and spirit. "Junior Ning Tian," she said, raising her head. Her voice was clear and pleasant, but threaded with excitement and a tremor she could not hide. "I pay my respects to Sectmaster Ancestor, Sword Douluo Ancestor, Bone Douluo Ancestor." She paused, turning her gaze to Ning Rongrong, whose wide, astonished eyes watched her. A warm, oddly intimate smile bloomed on the newcomer's face. "And Rongrong Ancestor, Ning Tian!" Ning Rongrong cried, covering her mouth instinctively, her beautiful eyes widening in stunned disbelief. A girl her apparent age calling her ancestor? The idea was bewildering. "Ning Tian?" Ning Fengji echoed, a sharp light flashing through his eyes as his suspicions crystallized. He made a small gesture inviting her to rise, his tone steady, but now clearly probing. "Young Miss Ning Tian, this ancestor you speak of, and that ancient sect salute that cannot be taught to outsiders. Do you have a deep connection with the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School?" He already had the answer forming in his heart. After all, even Ma Hongjun had descendants recorded in Shrek Academy 1,000 generations later. It was only natural the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School would have its own lost branches. Ning Tian rose as was asked, nodding earnestly. Her clear eyes shone with pride and a faraway reminiscence. "Ancestor, you've already guessed who I and Wu Feng are," she said. "I am not particularly gifted, but thanks to the sect's great care, I am precisely the contemporary successor to the sect master of the 9 treasure-glazed tile school. She raised a slender hand and concentrated. In an instant, a brilliant pagoda formed in her palm, wrapped in a pure 7-colored radiance. It spun slowly, an exquisitely translucent structure of 7 tiers, each one suffused with the strong light and aura of the 7 treasure-glazed tile pagoda spirit. 9 treasure-glazed tile school? Sect master successor? Even usually composed Ning Fengji showed a flash of surprise. Sword Douluo Chenshin and Bone Douluo Gurong exchanged astonished, solemn looks. The school's name changing to 9 treasure-glazed tile implied that Ning Rongrong's spirit had successfully evolved into the legendary 9 treasure-glazed tile pagoda, and a named successor carried enormous weight. It meant that this young girl, Ning Tian, would hold a position in the school 10,000 years, hence comparable to Ning Rongrong's present standing. But Ning Fengji's keen eyes caught something off. He frowned and fixed his gaze on the pagoda in Ning Tian's palm. Powerful as it was, it clearly had only 7 tiers. The aura is genuine. It's definitely the 7 treasure-glazed tile pagoda, he said slowly. But since you claim to be the successor of the 9 treasure-glazed tile school, why is your spirit still a 7-layer pagoda? A dozen thoughts rushed through his head. Ning Tian's cultivation at her age suggested extraordinary talent. If the sect truly possessed the 9 treasure legacy and she was the successor, she should have awakened a 9-layer pagoda. Unless Ning Rongrong, though she achieved the 9 treasure pagoda, failed to pass that divine spirit's bloodline down. If so, the long-term value of the 9 treasure legacy would be greatly diminished. Ning Fengji felt his heart sink at the possibility. Ning Tian saw the doubt flash across his face. She calmed the glow of her spirit and, with a solemn expression, explained, "Ancestor, your suspicion is correct. According to the sect's secret records, although Ancestor Rongrong, given a rare opportunity, did evolve the 7 treasure pagoda into the 9 treasure pagoda and later ascended to a god position, once she became a divinity, she was bound by strict restrictions from the laws of the god realm." She paused, regret heavy in her voice. Divinities cannot easily interfere in lower realm affairs, nor can they remain in the human world for long. Ancestor Rongrong was forced to ascend not long after becoming a divinity. Because of that, she was unable to leave direct bloodline descendants in the lower realm, and that heaven-defying 9 treasure pagoda spirit was not passed down in bloodline form. Her words echoed through the quiet courtyard, striking the hearts of Ning Fengji, Sword Douluo, Bone Douluo, and Ning Rongrong herself. Ning Tian added, tone edged with unwillingness, "If the 9 treasure pagoda bloodline had been passed on, given its auxiliary might, why would our school have retreated into a semi-reclusive state 10,000 years later? With that power, we would certainly rank among the continent's top forces." Ning Fengji exhaled, his voice layered with complexity. As a father, he felt proud that his descendant could reach the god realm. As sect master, he longed for a lasting, bloodline-born legacy to secure the sect's rise. But he controlled himself, at least knowing the sect's lineage continued and that a worthy successor existed in the future was cause for some comfort. "Little Tian," he said, easing his sigh into a warm smile, "you and I share the same bloodline. Don't bother with formalities. You come from a parallel world 10,000 years in the future. You must see things we can't. You seem to have a different perspective on Rongrong's god position. Speak freely." After Xuanzi had revealed that future to the public, Ning Fengji knew how much harder securing a god position would be. Many forces would now converge on that prize. He wanted to hear the successor's view. Ning Tian relaxed slightly at his tone. She arranged her thoughts, calm and clear, more strategist than simple girl. "Ancestor, I am not trying to cause alarm, only to judge the current situation objectively." Her voice was steady. "First, the biggest variable is time. The Spirit Empire already has 2 divinities who have completed their god positions, Bibi Dong and Qian Renshui. Their power and authority are immediate. Ancestor Rongrong and Ancestor Tang San, even if they immediately set off for Sea God Island to pursue god position legacy, must undergo a long divine examination. It could take years or even longer." She let the hard truth settle, then went on. "The Spirit Empire will not and cannot give us that time. Their military strength is at its peak, and their drive to unify the continent won't pause. I dare speculate, before Ancestor Tang San finishes his sea god assessment, the Spirit Empire may well have swept up, absorbed, or destroyed the resistance across the continent. By then, even if a few do achieve god positions, facing a fully unified empire, resources consolidated, two divinities presiding, the situation will be far more desperate. One isolated force cannot change the tide. Ning Rongrong paled as cold reality washed over her. Ning Tian continued, unflinching. The sect's secret records hint that in the decisive three-divinity battle that determined the continent's fate, Ancestor Tang San suffered tremendous danger and barely prevailed. Ancestor Rongrong and Ancestor Oscar's aid may have been crucial to turning the tide, but those events occurred after they had matured and obtained god position legacy. Right now, Ancestor Rongrong and the others lack the cultivation, experience, and temperament for that kind of battle. Even if they immediately seek the divine examination, can they withstand its intensity while the continent burns? Can they complete it amid powerful enemies and a full-scale war? Those are not certainties. Hope is slim. Her analysis peeled back an optimistic veneer to reveal a harsh truth. She was not carried away by joy at meeting her ancestors, nor was she complacent because she knew history. Her logic was cold, ruthless even, but convincing. Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo remained silent, faces growing grimmer. Ning Fengji's fingers tapped lightly on the armrest, a faint rhythmic sound in the still courtyard as he weighed options. Ning Tian's words had used a scalpel to dissect the dangers hidden beneath the allure of a god position. The atmosphere tightened, hope and crisis twined, making everyone uneasy. Chen Xin finally spoke. His voice was low but incisive, like a blade hitting the problem's core. His eyes, sharp with sword intent, fixed on Ning Tian. Ning Tian. There was an elder's scrutiny in his tone. You sought us out, declared your bloodline, and analyzed our advantages and shortcomings clearly. I'm afraid your purpose is more than a warning, isn't it? Speak your true intention. Ning Tian met his gaze without flinching. She inhaled as if making up her mind and admitted plainly, Ancestor Sword Douluo is perceptive. I will not hide anything. I do have selfish motives, and an audacious proposal concerning the sect's future, perhaps a safer choice. Her eyes swept over Ning Fengji, Chen Xin, Gu Rong, and finally rested on Ning Rongrong, who still looked stunned. I boldly petitioned Sectmaster Ancestor and all members of the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School to seriously consider abandoning our foundation in this world and, through a stable space-time passage, relocating the entire sect to the parallel world 10,000 years in our future. The suggestion hit like a meteor in a still lake. Ning Fengji's usually gentle face tightened, his pupils contracted. Sword intent in Chen Xin's aura sharpened. Gu Rong's lazy demeanor vanished, replaced by strict scrutiny. Ning Rongrong covered her mouth and stared, hardly believing it. Leave the Douluo Continent that had nurtured them? Ning Tian anticipated the shock and moved quickly to explain, her words clear and logical. Ancestor, forgive my bluntness, but the general trend in this world is collapse. With the Spirit Empire's two divinities and overwhelming military might, the situation is beyond saving. If the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School insists on staying, even if we marshal the entire sect to help Ancestor Rongrong secure a god position, success is unlikely. In that process, the sect's millennia of accumulation, its countless disciples, would become cannon fodder in a divine war, paying a price we cannot bear. We might even face total annihilation and the end of our legacy. Her voice was resolute. If we are to watch the sect fade away, why not preserve its most precious spark? Relocate, find soil where it can reroot, sprout, and flourish. Her gaze turned to Chen Xin and Gu Rong, frank and pleading. In our world, although the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile School's line survives, its strength is not among the continent's top. We suffer pressure from other powers and need truly formidable strength for support and deterrence. She became fervent. Ancestor Sword Douluo, your Tao of the sword is sublime. You've glimpsed the threshold of the law of the sword. Ancestor Bone Douluo, your defense is peerless. The mysteries of your bone dragon are boundless. With your talent and foundation, as long as you do not perish along the way, both of you have a great chance of reaching rank 98, perhaps even the unparalleled rank 99. This strength, in the 9-treasure glazed tile school 10,000 years hence would be invaluable, a cornerstone allowing the sect to rise again and stand in the great changes to come. I urgently need that power. The 9-treasure glazed tile school of the future needs the guidance and protection of all our ancestors.